Welcome, 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 welcome to open discussion. How you guys doing today? I hope everyone is doing wonderful. Well, today's topic is why did you really start garden? Why? Why did you decide I want to start gardening or I want to do gardening? Tonight, I want tonight be an open discussion where people can come up and talk about why they start gardening and the benefit and what they gain this year from gardening. Hi GT, Junior Grows at Alaska. How you doing, man? Shout out to you, man. Hello, James Franklin, Todd Tang. How you doing? Shout out to you. Thank you for being here. All right, guys. Tonight, I also want to do a giveaway. My real giveaway is in October, the last Thursday in October. Hey, Bobby Wilson, how you doing? Thank you for being here. That's gonna be my real giveaway when I'm gonna be giving away giving seed from every plant I grow this year. But today I'm gonna have a little giveaway also because I think, man, the support I gotta shout you guys out, man. You guys are awesome. The support you guys have given me, I mean, it made me you guys made me post videos because, sometimes you need that encouragement, that little push to make you wanna do different things, So, man, I have some herbs I wanna give away today, some seeds, and also I want to give somebody my planting days them. All my planting days in the 12 months. I want to give somebody that, that that package because that package is very important. My planting days them, the days that I plant my food from. Somebody can also win that today because it's very important knowing when to plant your food because the soil sometimes is not ready and sometimes it's ready. When I say not ready, what I mean is sometimes the soil could be a little too dry and then the sun is about to approach. So plant in a time like that can make your plant die. So it's important to know your planting days. And guys, you could know you ain't have to be a scientist for know a lot of things. Sometimes because of your experience and the knowledge that passed down from generation to you, and then you come and you do your own research and then you realize, damn, this really works. So it's important to know a lot of things while gardening. Hi, Angela. Canvas Delight, how you doing? Thank you for being here. So, guys, what make you want to start? We're going to start with, and then we're going to do the giveaway after. But we're going to start with, why did you start your garden? And what have you accomplished this year in your garden that make you say, yes, I'm going to continue doing this? I'm not sure if anybody in the want to come up tonight, which I would like a couple people to come up tonight because this is really, I want this to be something that people can share their testimony about how I start doing garden and the benefit. I think I've been sharing mine almost every day. So, so tonight, I really would like a few people to come up here and give me their garden experience so far, and also and also the result that you get this year. Okay, I'm gonna put the link in the chat. If anyone wanna come and share that, that will be a blessing. All right, anyone in the chat feel like coming up and share their testimony about their gardening experience this year? I will love to hear some of the experience that you guys had this year. I will love to hear that. TT, how you doing, boy? What's going on, brother?
Not much. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good. Yes. So what's
Nice.
going on, man?
Not much on my little daily walk real quick.
All
Wanted to
right.
jump in and contribute to the conversation.
Awesome, awesome. Because yeah, I really want, every week I'm talking about my garden. You know what I'm saying? I want to hear about other people garden and their result and what they gain from gardening. You know what you got me?
Yes, yes.
Because you want to hear people because there's a lot of new gardeners, and I know they meet some challenges because garden you will always meet challenge, and you also gonna have some good time. So you know what I mean, sharing that will be wonderful for real.
Sounds good. I started gardening because about 15 years ago I bought a honeydew melon, and the honeydew melon had no flavor. It wasn't sweet. It was just it wasn't like I was so upset at it. I felt like I got swindled that I wanted to take it back to the store, but I had already cut it all up because that's what I was
Mm.
doing. I was putting it in a bowl and just eat the melon. So that's what made me start gardening because I was like, no, if they can, this thing has traveled this far and then it's this bad. No, I'm gonna try to grow it myself. So that's what I did, and I tried sugar baby watermelon, and I got a sugar baby watermelon about this big. Yeah, so I knew it was possible. So yeah, um, and then I started growing a medical herb, and the medical herb didn't go so well the first two times, but after that, I did more research. That was before Google was as accessible as it is now. I didn't have money like that to be buying um no unlimited plan. So, I found some stuff on the internet and, you know, spent a couple of, $20, $30 or whatever on research, printing out the papers. And yeah, so that's what I did. What has been successful or what I have learned since starting a garden is patience can help you achieve your gardening ambitions. Um, Seeing things as learning instead of a failure um, helps you keep on going, keep on thriving. Um, Let me see. The thing that has done the best in my garden is probably the raspberries. Raspberries are prolific. No nothing needed to get a harvest from there, from those. Um, it's been an eye-opening experience for my son to actually walk around the garden looking for something to eat. So that was pretty cool. Um, yeah. Um, garden has given me substance as far as food, trying new vegetables. Let me see. Peace, community. I built a community here in the garden community on YouTube. Um, Anticipation on my food. I've learned to be a little bit more patient. I'm already a patient person, but this gave me a little bit more. You can't rush the success or the progress of your grow. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Good to hear your story, man, because like I said, I've been talking about mine, but I'm not hearing too much people's story. Yes, I watch the videos, but you're not really hearing their stories about the experience, the difficulties, the bugs, the you know what I mean? And it could be really challenging at times, for real. But I always tell people, don't give up. Don't ever give up, man. Just even you plant a plant and it die, don't give up. And I always say again, if you have a plant that dying, that's the plant you need to pay all the attention to. And as you say, patient is you got to have patience. Hello, Urban Garden Chronicles. How you doing? Hello, Lashos. How you doing? Thank you guys for being here. Yes. And GT, you do a lot of cut. You do like cutlings. You do a lot of right. How that working for you, man?
It was working pretty well, but then being unmotivated, having different things come into my life has slowed down the actually being able to share my success. But
Okay.
I have rooted many different types of fruit trees. Figs are very easy. Lemons, I've actually, yes, I've definitely done great with lemons. Um, Let me see. Elderberry, stevia, different types of mint. I've done many types of cuttings. I even tried a apple cutting, and I was getting leaves, and then somebody in the comments was like, um, "You're not going to get roots because of hormones and separation and all this other stuff." So I learned, and it was because I had seen people's videos, and it basically was saying that they had success, but you know after I went deep dive into apple propagation, it doesn't seem like it's a something that you can do unless you're going to graft it onto something or graft off of something with apples. But I'm actually looking at Hands in the Dirt had put up a white Marcellus fig, and I've been on Etsy looking. So I'm trying to see what I'm gonna do, but there's some figs that I think I want to produce. I think I want to do. Um, but yeah, for the most part, if I see it, um, I'm gonna try to do a cutting on it. Um, yeah, I love it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, just keep doing it, man. Don't give up on doing that at all because it's important. And share the video as much as you can. I know sometimes you get real busy because that happened to me from time to time. Sometimes, hey James Franklin, how you doing, man? Yeah, sometimes.
How are you, Planter? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I'm hearing you. What's going on?
Oh, I'm doing good. I just wanted to stop in and talk to the people and give me the opportunity. Why not?
Of course, I appreciate that. I need to hear the stories of you guys because I've been talking about my garden. I want to hear about how your garden going and your experience, because a lot of people trying to do gardening, but they need that motivation because sometimes gardening is not gonna just be perfect. Sometimes you really go through some times, but the mistake you got to make the mistake. Be a teacher. So when you make
I
mistake,
think,
you learn from the mistake. Go ahead,
oh,
brother.
absolutely. I think all gardeners have made mistakes over their gardening time. It's a career or whatever, you know. It's part of gardening. If you don't make mistakes, something's wrong. I mean, that's about as simple as I could put it. To the point that it's what you do and how you feel and how you look at those mistakes that makes all the difference in your gardening experience. You know what I mean? Because you have people say like a lot of newbies, for example, and they'll go out and they'll plant something regardless of what it is, and it doesn't do well or it dies or whatever the case may be, and then they just get all bummed out and think that they got rocks for green thumbs and stuff like that, and that's not the case. There's some things that you have to learn,
Right.
and it's not only the things that you have to learn, you have to settle on a growing style, because it's just the nature of gardening that some growing styles cannot be combined together, whereas others work well together. And it takes your research, your time, your due diligence to find out what's best for you. Not only find out what's best for you, what's best for you to do to have a productive garden versus a successful garden. Because you can, like, for example, it took me forever to grow tomatoes. And I've grown tomatoes whereas those plants were healthy, they were strong and tall and beautiful, and I got not one freaking tomato, not one. And that's the thing, that my success as far as growing tomatoes progressed because I began to learn that tomatoes require a different nutritional value than all the other crops that I was growing at the time. And that took me on a quest that, it's through these failures and mistakes that I did my due diligence to do the research and whatever else I needed to do to be successful for in this case, to grow tomatoes successfully, that led me to being a firm believer in feeding soil, not plants. And the fact that I've not only learned to feed soil, I became a firm believer in it, that you take care of the soil, the plants are automatically covered, to the point that you got good soil, you could grow just about, if not anything you want to grow,
Mhm.
providing your climate is permitted for you to be able to grow that something, or you have means for cold frames, greenhouses, hoop houses, and hotbeds and everything like that, to be able to grow certain things in a climate that's not really fitting for that plant. Whereas you could create your own eco climate, if you will, whereas a garden in itself, rather the gardener realizes it or not, is a microclimate, or an eco mini ecosystem, or ecosystem within the ecosystem, if you will. And I think, I demonstrate that in my videos, especially the latter part of my videos, when I started showing different creatures coming into the garden and things like that, and explaining why I'm welcoming of these certain things into the garden, and hoping that they would take that my space, my growth space, as their natural habitat to return every year and bring a couple of their friends, if not procreate within that habitat, because it's an ecosystem that once you strike that balance, it'll darn near take care of itself, which gives the gardener, for example, a lot of time to sit back and do further research. without, you know, having to be in the crunch. Okay, well, this is not doing well or whatever. I got to find out what's going on, this, that, the other. Meanwhile, in between time, you got things going on in the garden that you need to correct or pay special attention to, or whatever the case may be, to whereas if you get to that level whereas you can start to appreciate certain things that come into the garden. Like, for example, one of my last videos, I showed a monarch caterpillar eating on one of my what was that? Doggone it. Anyways, one of my plants, and it was eating on it. And some of the response in my comments was, you need to get rid of that thing and this, that, the other. And it's like, well, no, it's a monarch. Monarchs are special to the point that they're worth, at least I think they're worth, planting that extra to give them what they need to make that journey, because monarch is one of the very few butterflies that migrates. And I'm real close to Mexico, because I live in New Mexico, but I'm real close to Mexico, whereas that's part of they're starting their journey from Mexico headed north. So if I could, you know, provide a habitat for them to stop and refuel or produce or whatever they need to do, I'm good for it. I don't mind them just chewing up one of my plants or whatever I put out for them to do what they do. And it's not really a loss, because at that stage of that plant, I wanted the seeds. It's fennel. That's the plant. It was my fennel plant, because I wanted the seeds so that I could use in my Italian sausage making. So the fact that they were eating some foliage, it wasn't no big deal to me, because I'm not after the foliage. I didn't plant the plant for foliage. I planted it for the seed. You see what I'm saying? So it didn't matter. Whereas you're allowing nature to be a significant part in your growing practices, that once you start to realize that and understand the role that nature plays in what you do as far as growing, it greatly reduces your input you got to put in. Only thing you have to do is just do certain things with nature in mind, and nature will come and take care of certain things. Like that frog that I showed one night. That sucker was in there just eating bugs up, doing me a favor that I don't have to sit back and, you know, mix soap together with water and this oil and that and whatever, you know what I'm saying, trying to fight these bugs, where I got a natural, you know, defense system that's taking care of things for me, as well as that praying mantis that made one of my biggest sunflower its home. And that sucker, hey, ain't nothing going on there insect wise messing with it, because that daggone praying mantis is going to take care of business. And I'm hoping that it procreate or come back with a few more of its friends next season. And like the hummingbird I tried to, you know, catch on film or whatever, I think that those hummingbirds, I believe, is the reason why those beans do so well every year, because those hummingbirds is in there pollinating those beans for me. Because believe it or not, I have not seen not one bee in my garden the 2 seasons that I've been growing. So I got to rely on other pollinators to come in and do stuff in the garden that bees normally do. And hopefully one day I might attract some bees in there. Who knows? You know, and then my style of growing is not organic. To me, I think of it as a step beyond organic, because I'm trying to cooperate and coexist with the natural order of nature. Whereas if that was to take place and I was to be able to continue it and build it up to the point that the garden itself becomes a sanctuary for nature, pretty much all I have to do is plant and water, maintain. Nature will take care of the rest, because there's no chemicals or anything in my garden. You know what I mean? And it takes a little bit of time to get to that point to know what natural substance will give you XYZ as far as nutrition is concerned. But
Yeah.
the main key to that, which gives you time to do your research, the more diversity that you have as far as organic matter into your soil, the better off you're going to be, to the point
Yeah.
that now you have that time to do your research. At the same time, your garden is producing and growing well without having to do all of these crazy things on a commercial level, whereas you go in to buy this deterrent and that spray and this type of fertilizer. You don't have to do all of that. You know what I mean? And I haven't went to the store and bought fertilizer in about 15, 20 years until this year, whereas I tried my first hand at growing some blueberries. And the research that I've done, because the blueberries was something that I've never grown before, but I do know that blueberries require an acidic soil. So as much as I know about creating soil and amending soil and everything, I know very little about acidic soils. So one of the points of research that I've come across was that sulfur helps create an acidic soil for blueberries and other acidic loving plants to thrive in. And that's when I went out and I bought a bag of sulfur. And that's the first money I spent in 15, 20 years as far as amendments or some type of nutrition for the soil that I've ever spent, only because I'm entering into a new area of soil, if you will, that was beyond, my knowledge, or beyond my point of knowledge, that I could experiment or formulate something to be able to do this, especially when I already had the blueberries. I already didn't purchase the blueberries and everything. So I thought that was the best route that I could go, and I still wound up losing my blueberries. But again,
Wow.
it was it was a learning experience. Now I know what I did wrong, why I lost them. Whereas when I try again, at least I know what not to do, even if I haven't dialed in what to do, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Man,
And
Who's that talking?
James Franklin.
this is James Franklin.
Oh, oh man. Okay,
What's up,
okay.
GT? You know? So,
What's good with you,
how I got
James?
I'm hanging in there, bro. I'm, hanging in there doing what I do best I can anyway. You know what I mean? Life to me is no different than my garden. I do what I can with what I have. That's it.
Yeah.
And as far as that goes, I mean, I've been gardening all my life. I mean, I was 13, 14 years old when my dad gave me the permission to carve out a little spot on the land for my own garden, even though I've been working in the family garden as long as I can remember up to that point. But that garden was mine. Whereas I call the shots is what I grow, if it fails or not or whatever. And that is where my learning really took off, where I learned why my dad did certain things in the garden, and why he grew the way he grew, so on and so forth. And since then I have grown exponentially, to the point that my dad grew in a way that I call a commercial way, because he went out and bought fertilizers. His favorite fertilizer was 10-10-10, and that's an awesome fertilizer or whatever, and it made things in the garden just pop. Whereas now I do not fool around with how my dad grew. I grow totally different than how my dad grew, but at the same time, the knowledge I learned from him and the techniques and methods I've learned from him, I still apply them in my organic style of growing. And they hold weight and work. Them old school ways, man, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
they are it, the bag of chips and all of that, as far as I'm concerned. And my experience in gardening tells me that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I've never had any, failures or whatever. I've had a lot of failures. And it's those failures that pushed me to learn what I know. Like
Mhm.
my first gardens I've had in Florida. The area of Florida I was in was sand. There was no soil, no soil. So I was determined that I was going to grow a garden. And that sand would only support things like greens, but not very well. It would support watermelon, oh, awesomely well, it would support that. But that's pretty much about it. I couldn't grow much of nothing else. So that's where I learned different styles of growing, because that was my first time I've grown in raised beds. So my first raised bed was a combination of spaghetti gardening combined with square foot gardening, which the rule of square foot gardening is you can grow 1 to 16 plants in a square foot depending on the plant. And I've learned to make my own soil. I've learned how to do compost. I've learned how to work with charcoal as well as biochar, and how to charge it, how to use it in a way that it won't be detrimental to your soil. Because if you don't use it right, yeah, you'll get the exact opposite effect that you were hoping for if you
Yeah.
don't use it properly, and things of that nature. And I learned all of these things, some of it, well, most of it, putting my hands on it and actually doing it, putting my hands in the soil. Some of it is doing research, going to the library, checking out books, because it was a time where the internet was pretty decent as far as, getting information and doing research, but I wasn't tech savvy. Still ain't tech savvy, but I definitely wasn't tech savvy then. So my method was the old school way. I go to the library, check out a book, and just start reading the book and taking notes, you know what I mean? Old school style or whatever. Check them books back in, and put my hands on it and put those practices to work and see what the results were. And then as I began to see the results, this, that, and the other, I began to tweak it, to play with it this way, that way, the other, and checking out my results according to what I've done or whatever. And I've taken extensive notes, which I pretty much put a lot of emphasis on if I'm advising anyone that asks me a question or whatever, especially for newbie gardeners. Take notes, take extensive, detailed notes. You will be surprised at how much you will learn about garden just from your own note taking. And I learned a lot just from that. I've learned what to do, what not to do, what the results were from doing this, that, or the other. And, coming from that, because before I started growing here in New Mexico, my last garden was in Florida. So making that transition from a subtropical climate to a desert climate, I've come to realize a lot of those methods still work and work well. They just have to be tweaked a little bit to the environment that I'm in. Because I mean, it was what, I don't know, almost July or some part in July when I got my first rain or something like that. You know what I mean? My first rain since February of the following year. You know what I'm saying? I mean, of the previous year, I mean. So, you gotta work on ways to retain water and work on that soil in a way that it would hold more moisture and things of that nature. And that takes you down a whole different rabbit hole, to the point that I personally am enjoying it, because it's pushing my knowledge. It's going to drag just about everything I know to make it happen out here. And that right there is the joy for me, because now I get to sit back and realize, okay, can you grow? I mean, is Florida just like one of those places where you could grow just about anything? Just put a couple of elements together and will it grow? You know what I mean? But out here in the desert, yeah, boy, you better bring your A game. Because I mean, my garden last year was off the chain. It started late July, I'm sorry, late April. And by the time June rolled around, literally you could barely see the soil in my beds. Those plants grew so well. But early this season was a whole different ball game. Whereas early in the season, it was good warm days, and then it was cool to pretty much cold nights, which ended up wiping out all of my sweet potato crop except one. And
Oh,
things just wasn't growing properly or growing as fast as it should. And honestly, it made me nervous. So when that big rain came, my garden just exploded. And at that point, my garden is pushing 2 months old at that point. And after that rain, I started seeing seeds popping up out of the ground that I had
Mhm.
rolled off and resowed because it was way too long before, that germination period was way too long. And that it brings me to a different level of thinking, to the point that, okay, the pack on the seed says something along the lines 7 to 14 days for germination. But when you look at nature's book, nature's way, that seed is not going to germinate until conditions are correct, are right, and
Yeah.
it will germinate. You see? And that was one of the things that I was shockingly reminded of when that big rain came and stuff was popping up out of the ground. And that's one of the reasons my garden this year was so condensed and just about overgrown, because there were things that started to grow that I had resown and gave up on because it's been too long. I was thinking either the cold killed them or the seeds wasn't viable or what have you. You see what I'm saying? So growing out here, you have to pay attention. Well, not just out here, anywhere you are, you have to pay attention to your environment, how your plants react to the environment, and be able to dial in ways that you need to do things to work best for you. And I know I was long-winded, went around the world and sailed the
Oh,
seven seas just to come to that conclusion. But garden is complex in that way. That there is no set rule that you have to do XYZ in order to grow ABC. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I'm always expressing the fact that you got to read your garden, you got to understand what your plants is telling you, and you got to read the environment in which the plant is growing, and you got to combine all of that information together with the tools of your skill level and knowledge to be able to formulate a plan to grow whatever it is that you're trying to grow, regardless of what it is. If it's weed, flower, or crops, or tree, or what the freaking ever it is, the whole thing all applies to the same aspect of growing. And I don't
yes.
want to take up all your time. Go ahead, GT. You can kick it. I'm
No,
done.
I mean, that's what I'm looking for, the experience from other people, instead of just me. The experience, like how lay out your experience, that's awesome. That's wonderful. GT,
Well, yes. Go
yes,
ahead.
go ahead, James. Go ahead.
Well, that's one of the things, I wanted to say also, that getting into microbes, I've learned microbes are not just microbes. You know what I mean? Like for example, microbes here in New Mexico work just like microbes do in Florida, but they're different microbes. If you were to switch places with those microbes, they'll die. It's not, it's like, how can I explain it? It's like taking a doggone saltwater fish and putting them in a lake. It's not gonna fly. He's gonna die because he's a saltwater fish. You see what I'm saying? Even though he's a fish, he does everything a fish supposed to do, but he does it in his environment, you know? And with that being said, building the soil, you have to take that into consideration in terms of what to do to the soil to build it, when to add certain amendments, and so on and so forth. That kind of changes from region to region, although there are some set rules that I would say are carved in stone that holds true no matter where you are, just as long as you do it in your
Yeah.
region. Like, for example, when you go out into the forest, the woods, or whatever you call it in your neck of the woods, and you find the oldest, biggest tree you could find, and then you move that leaf litter to the side, and you get that loamy goodness, that compost that's right there at the base of that tree. That's the best stuff that you could get to bring
Yes,
into your
sir.
garden,
Oh, yes.
or to kickstart your compost pile, that you could multiply whatever species of microbes that's there, because those particular set from that old tree is the strongest, the oldest, the dominant, most programmed to do what microbes are supposed to do.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were to use that, you get the results you have. You get plants that's 7 feet tall that's normally grow 3, 2 feet or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that, right, yes, and that's why I'm always saying I need to grow what I need in order to build my soil because I'm in the desert, whereas I can't go to a forest or whatever and jumpstart my stuff that way. I tried to do it the shortcut way and go to the ecology, and darn near killed my garden. And it took me pretty much a year for that supply to become good. You see what I'm saying? And I did it as a matter of fact, my first set of shorts was on that compost that was poison and bad that I was getting out of there and starting all over that ended up being good and sprouting my doggone pumpkin seeds. And that's when I'm like, okay, it done turned good. So what I did, I was feeding it table scraps and other stuff, and I was watering it, hoping that the new material that I was adding in would draw in the native microbes, being that I'm composting in the ground. So my whole pile is surrounded by microbes, native microbes. And eventually they moved in and took care of things and made the bad good. And then once that happened, I didn't use it or whatever. I just kept building on it. I scraped off, I think, 6 to 8 inches of the top because it was still bad, poison. From there down was all good. It even smelled different. It looked different and everything. So I just took it from there and began to build it up and build it up and build it up to right now. It's pretty doggone good. And I'm scared to use all of it because if you have a degree of it left behind, you can build more that much faster versus starting all over from scratch or whatever, because it's already full of microbes. Those microbes are active or whatever. So it's kind of like the same thing you're doing, is just that I have to do it on a smaller, more hands-on way because I don't
Right.
have that native source to go into nature and pull out. You know what I mean? I have to create it right here within, my square fence of what I'm doing. And that
Right.
was my plan with the pumpkin that ended up being a zucchini, because pumpkins grow long vines and they grow exponentially fast. So my goals were to get those runner vines out and leave the vines behind that's going to produce something, and use that greenery in my compost to build it up, to get a degree of heat going, and start, taking care of things as far as building up a good, source of compost. Not only a good source of compost, but highly nutritional, because I was
Yeah.
putting everything in there. I put stuff in it from the garden. I'm putting stuff in it from the kitchen. You know what I'm saying? And if there's a certain type of weed, because I've studied these weeds here long before I even began growing, that the weeds here are very unique and ancient in their characteristics. Their characteristics, I mean, is that, and I've seen areas that was totally bald. I mean, like like dust. The wind blows, it'll freaking make a dust devil or something like that. You know what I mean? And then certain time of year when we hit was what we call our monsoon season, that area that was bald goes green to the point that you would think it's grass, but it's not grass. It's pure weed. But there are different types of weed. And it's like that phenomenon kind of took me for a loop. And it was worth me studying that to the point that I've learned from that scenario is that seeds will not do what they need to do until conditions is right. Even though you would think there's no seed there or whatever, it's there. Trust me, it's
Yeah.
there. And when that took place, it's like, okay, now how do I apply that phenomenon to my garden? And how I was able to apply it to my garden, I applied it on a nutritional standpoint to where certain types of weeds I will not allow to grab a stronghold inside my fenced area. If you ever see my videos and you really pay attention to the outside area, what grows outside of my grow space is very different than what grows outside of my grow beds. Even though there's weeds growing outside of my grow bed, they're very different than the ones growing outside of my fence. Why? Because the ones I've weeded out, and every now and again one will pop up and I'll pluck that sucker out, because those are the type that produce seeds real fast, real early. It
Yeah.
takes a couple of weeks and that sucker got seeds
Yeah,
to the
that's
point
true.
that you know what I'm saying? So those are the ones I try to keep out, and the ones that they pretty much got to get 3 feet or better before they even form seeds, no less a while down the road before those seeds become viable. I can take those that I showed in one of my videos that shoot a tap root 6 inches or better into the soil. I look at that as a nutritional pump,
Yeah,
because it's pulling up nutrition out of that native soil that my
definitely.
plants don't have available, because they are pretty much in that 6 to 8 inch zone. Being that they are up in raised beds, they're probably penetrating native soil maybe 3 inches or something like that. So by taking those weeds and making fertilizer out of them, I'm getting a level of nutrition that I may or may not be adding through my compost process
You
and
see,
bringing it all together with the comp. Well, go ahead.
no, what I was going to say, that's why I always talk about planting deep. If you notice in a lot of my videos, I always talk about planting deep because it's a lot
Right.
of benefit planting deep. It's a whole lot of benefit planting deep. And like you was now saying there, when the root go down that deep, you're right. It suck the minerals and feed. It suck it up and feed the
Yeah.
plants. And this is the thing, a lot of weeds add a lot of benefit to your plants, to your soil as well. A lot of weed does that.
Yes. Yes. You're
Well,
right. Like dandelion.
if I decide that I'm weeding up my garden, all them weeds I take up, I either put them around the plant or I throw them on the pile because I already know these plants is very good in your garden. So sometimes this is why a lot of people don't even weed their garden. They just allow the weed them to just grow with the plants. Because these things adds a lot of minerals to the soil to feed the plant. So this is why I always talk about choking them deep. Lots of benefit like that.
And and you are 100% right. I mean, you could use weeds as a cover crop even. But the
Yeah.
thing with using them as cover crop is you got to do it. You got to be in the right area for it. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if I were to take my weeds and use them for a cover crop, for example, or even chop and drop method or whatever, the type of weeds that I got growing in my region, I am creating an absolute headache in my
Because you're
growing
gonna start
practice.
grow back, right?
They will take over my garden. And if you notice, right, if you notice, I got a fair amount of weeds growing in my fence. Very few weeds are growing in my beds. You see what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
just look at how horrific those weeds outside of my beds are growing. And I'm purposely allowing those specific species of weeds to grow so that I can convert them to fertilizer. So just imagine how my garden would be if I would have used weeds, well, these particular weeds in the manner that you just spoke about. So what I'm saying is you got to tweak natural phenomenons in your area to be able to use them to your benefit in your growing practices.
Okay. You
So
know,
that's why I have to weed out certain types of weeds and allow others to, you know, progress so that I can use them later when they reach a certain point. Because if I was to take the weeds that I don't even know the names of these weeds, but if I were to allow them to grow, say 6 to 8 inches, and then try to use them as, you know, convert them through by way of super juice into fertilizer, the nutritional value of that fertilizer would be nowhere near as great if I were to allow that plant to get 2.5, 3 feet high or higher. By that stage, it will have shot that taproot down deep enough that it could be a pump and start pumping up the nutrients. And I can always tell it because you know when you'll get the beginnings of a flower before the seed come on most plants. And when it hits that stage, I know it has pumped up some really good nutrition from beyond my crop
okay,
ability. And then
okay.
I'll yank that sucker out of the ground. Go
Well,
ahead.
here what I does do. I don't pull them up. I cut off the head. You got me
Okay.
like cut off the head so the root's still in the earth. So all I'm doing, I'm cutting
Right.
off the head and use that as to either straight in the compost or just straight around the plant. Because the head, the
Hmm.
root is chopped off, so most likely they're gonna just dry and quail up right there. When you pulling them up
Right.
by the
Right.
root, that's a whole different ball game. Yes, they're gonna grow. But I chop
Well,
them. Yeah, go ahead.
well, the reason I do it the method that I do it in the future, if I last that long out here, in the future, my beds, like every bed, they leach a level of nutrients off of those beds. In one of my videos, I described that pertaining to marigolds, how well they were growing right next to my bed versus some other ones that I had transplanted from that spot over to the fence. All right, there's a difference of night and day in there. So I took that, I thought about that phenomenon that was going on to the point that, okay, if I could make it so that very few weeds will grow that close to my beds, because I feel there's enough weeds growing outside of my grow beds that I could do this, that I could plant crop right there in that leach zone and still have more production of crop versus dealing with weeds, to the point that turning weeds into fertilizer isn't as important to me as producing compost, because I could always make compost tea if I need that much more nutrient to feed, you know, my soil or whatever. So I could always make compost tea. And I raise worms so I could grow. I mean, I'll do worm casting tea or mix the two together. I mean, I have a slew of ways that I can make fertilizer, to the point that I don't necessarily have to rely on those. It's just that I wanted them at this stage in the game because my compost production is slow at this point. So I have to be choicey where I use it. I got to use it where it's most beneficial. Like I need to build that soil up along that fence line, and I did a video about that. Whereas I don't have enough compost production to do that. So if I was to go with the compost tea, which more than quadruple the number of microbes, and go that route until I'm slowly able to amend that soil, I will get far more benefits that way versus trying to get raw material to amend it. You see what I'm saying? That's my strategy to what I'm doing, and I think right now it's the best thing I'm able to come up with, considering
Okay.
my growth conditions out here. You see what
Okay.
I'm saying? And that's just how I've strategized it so far. It doesn't mean it might change tomorrow if I come up with a better way to do it. But right now, that's it. Because in my
Well,
video, I described that, okay, instead of doing the whole strip, I'll just concentrate in pockets as far as amending the soil with organic matter. But then
mhm.
I thought later on that if I was to go the compost or the worm casting tea method, if I grow those microbes, I'll be able to have a better grow experience until I'm able to produce the organic material I need to amend it. Whereas I could use those weeds as such, and they'll
Mhm.
keep growing because those daggone weeds, man, they're weeds. They grow when you think they wouldn't grow. They'll grow when your plants won't grow. You'll That's a degree of organic material that I will basically always have. So
Yeah.
pulling them up by the roots is not that significant to me, so long if I do it right up against my beds where they grow the most. They grow the most right up against my bed. Um but sweet potato row, well, my potato row, because that row I've ever planted there since I made that row was potatoes. And the experimental mound, I just created that this season. So I'm noticing that the weeds grow right around where I grow my crop at. So that's telling me they're leaching either nutrients or water or both. And
Mhm.
that's where I'll take them from and use them because I'm
Okay.
taking that nutrients back. Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes
And
sense.
it's yeah, that's the fun part to me because I've never had to do that before. You know what I mean? I've always, like I explained on another live, I don't remember whose live it was, but I had explained to a person that when my early days in producing compost, right, I went from putting out 2.5 to two 32-gallon garbage cans full of garbage every daggone week to a half of a 32-gallon garbage can a week because I began composting all of that other material.
Mm, okay.
So, but right, so by doing that, I was able to, how could I say this? I was able to realize the power of compost in the garden. And if you keep doing it over a period of time, your compost will literally turn into topsoil.
That yeah, that you that's true. Because like I'm saying, over I've been doing the same method for
Uh-huh.
over 10 years now, and never had for no form of fertilizer, no form of chemical. And I tell you,
Right. You don't need it.
don't no, you don't. And I tell you, everything you plant in this garden, it grows.
Yes.
I'm not
It grows
joking.
well. Yeah.
Everything you plant in this garden, it grows and it produces well. Because the soil, I always say the soil means a lot in the garden. The soil is everything. Once the soil is good, your plant's gonna do well.
Yes. Yes. And I'll tell you something else about healthy soil. Whereas this garden, this year was the first garden I've had in maybe 15 years that I actually had extensive bug problems. Because up until this point, all my gardens have always had well balanced dynamite soil. So that led me to believe a piece of research that I've read years ago that healthy soil helps prevent negative bug pressure, meaning the type of
That's
bugs that wreak
true.
havoc on your plants. You know what I'm saying? And
That's
in
true.
this season, was the first season since I've created the soil in my beds that I haven't extensively fed it. So being that I had the bug problems I've had this year, I look at it as a sign that way more nutrients than I thought was absorbed out of my soil to the point that the bugs are coming in. Even though I saw signs early in the season that I was going to have bug pressure, but I figured planting certain plants like my onions that surrounded my number one bed, right? I had no bug issues in that bed all season long until I harvest those onions. And then the turnip greens that I had blew up with aphids.
Mm.
Good thing it happened when it happened, because it wasn't worth my time fighting those aphids because it was an infestation at that point. But it wasn't worth my time to fight them to harvest the few little bit that was left on it when it was easier for me to just yank it out and get it prepared to start a fall crop going. And that's ultimately what I did. So I got rid of the aphids at the same time as making space for not only my tomatoes to grow better, but to have room to grow, not grow, but plant, my fall crops or whatever. So that's telling me either before I put those beds to rest or first thing spring, I'm gonna have to go and do what I did in the beginning and add a little bit of ag lime to it. Or in this case, I might not go with ag lime because I do have natural limestone that I've collected when I was a driller and we hit limestone. And I mean, it pulled up pounds and pounds of that stuff. So I had, took some of that home with me and I still have some. So I'll amend it with that. I'll amend it with uh, some animal manure. I know a lady that I go and buy organic eggs from, and I can go when she has goats and horses and all kinds of stuff. So I'll go there and get my manure, and I'll go ahead and amend those beds and also up against the fence as well while I'm at it, and start from there. Hopefully that will not only interrupt the insect cycle, but also make that soil rich enough and nutrient dense enough that whatever I grow in it will come back strong and healthy, that bugs won't come to it. Because bugs only come to the weak plants. And I didn't show this, although I should have, but that hybrid pumpkin that turned out to be a zucchini, bugs are not really dealing with that plant. But the true zucchini that I had planted next to it, man, them bugs is tearing that up, and it's pretty much decimated my thinking, yeah, maybe I should use those seeds instead of the store-bought seeds because that plant does so much better right here. It was pretty much created right here. And that's one of the reasons I'm feeling it's doing so well because it was created right here. So I think I might go that route instead of buying store-bought zucchini and rolling with those seeds because I'm getting a higher production. I'm getting a bigger plant. I'm getting a less problemsome plant as far as bugs loving and attacking it. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, bugs were on it, but they did nowhere near the damage to that one particular plant than they did all the rest of my other squash plants. Even though I had one that was the same species, a zucchini,
Okay.
planted from the same zucchini pack of the zucchini I had last season. So yeah, it's bringing all of that together and working with it because I'm a firm believer that if you collect seeds from crops you've grown and you do it consecutively, by the time you reach your third season, the third generation seeds will begin to grow much better in that area than any generation before it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen that happen when I've my garden. My first garden I had in Florida lasted for about 4 or 5 years. So I've seen this transition take place because I saved seeds and I replanted them the following year. And it was like, yeah, okay. And I took notes and everything and compared because I always want to see how the next generation seeds produce versus the original. And that's one of the reasons I didn't um, uproot. I had some volunteer pole beans this year come up. In fact, I had two of them come up. One grew really weird and one died, but all the rest of them were fresh seeds that I just planted. And the one that was a volunteer is producing a little bit more beans than the fresh seeds that I planted, but the vine didn't grow. It was close, but not quite as horrific as the fresh seed plants, which is
Okay.
okay with me because I rather the production than the growth anyway, you know? So I'm just curious to see how those seeds from that volunteer plant is going to do next year versus some fresh ones out of the pack that I'm going to plant and be able to compare the difference and how
Oh,
they grow. So I can visibly see one plant from the other, how well it's doing and how well that plant is acclimating to this exact location.
okay. All right. That was wonderful, man. Thank you for all the information you share. I mean, because I knew we all need to hear, and then you in a different neighbor, different places, different climates. So that's wonderful, man. Yes. So GT, so one guy was asking in the thing if how you air dry is air graph or air dry you was talking about. You know about that?
Air drying or air layering?
You mute. Let me
Air
have you.
layering.
I mean, you're kind of because they're
Yeah,
different.
yeah,
They're two
something
different
like that
things.
you were saying. GT,
Said it
I'm
again.
not hearing you.
So the one you're talking about, are you drying something or are
No,
you
no,
producing
it
a new
wasn't
plant?
me. It wasn't me. It was somebody in the chat. While he was talking about
Oh, okay.
grafting, somebody in the chat was asking the question, like, how do you is
Okay.
alien something like that? So I was just trying for asking
All
if
right.
you know
Well,
anything about that,
I
but
can't
I'm
I
not
can't see
hearing
the
him.
chat,
But
but
GT, you're
I'll
mute,
say
man.
this. It
Unmute yourself. GT,
okay.
unmute yourself.
Okay.
Okay.
So you was asking about air layering.
One guy in the chat, I'm still not hearing. Yeah, he was talking about alien. James, I mean,
They're
I
talking about a
appreciate the
persimmons.
information, man. You know about
Oh,
alien,
it's
James?
okay. I mean, I don't want to hog up all the
No,
time.
no,
Let GT answer the question.
no. Anybody could answer it, but I'm not hearing
Yes.
GT.
Well,
That's the
only
thing.
well, go ahead,
GT.
GT. You I know you can answer it. Go ahead. I mean, I can too, but you better for the better man for it than me.
uh,
Oh, no, I'm hearing you. No, I'm hearing you.
it's it's tricky to air layer anything in Alaska from my experience because we don't have the climate that the lower 48 has. We don't get the heat, so the roots do not generate because I haven't given it the proper environment for it. But I heard from another gardener, lead farmer, say that air layering persimmons is very difficult if that's the comment that you're referring to, planter garden. But I have tried to air layer apple tree twice and it didn't work. So I think it's problematic until I figure out how to do it, how to air layer here in Alaska.
Got you, got you. So, James, you do that? You know about that, James?
Um, yeah, I do. I mean, I'm not an expert in that. That's one of the things that I try to do Whenever I get a chance, because I mean, I rent, I don't own. So as far as me getting into growing trees is a little down the road for me right now. But I do have about 2 or 3 books that covers various things on the care for trees, identifying different, well, mainly fruit and nut trees that you can identify different diseases and funguses and this, that, and the other, and how to treat them. So when it comes to the air layering versus grafting, there are two different things. Whereas the air layering, the main thing you want to do with air layering is making sure that that soil you use, whatever your grow media is that you want the roots to grow into, needs to be sterile, but not sterile in the sense that the microbes are dead. Not that kind of sterile. Sterile in the sense that there's no junk in it, that it's pure. If you use compost, let it be pure compost. If you use a potting soil, make sure the potting soil is alive. Because a lot of people don't realize when you buy potting soil out of the store, a lot of it is dead. Same thing with buying
Mhm.
compost out of the store. Some of it is dead. More of it's dead than not. You know what I'm saying? So just make sure whatever grow media you use is clean in that sense, that it's alive, it's well, and it's teeming with active microbes. Your second step, as far as air layering is being careful with that candium layer, because the way you want to do it, you want to cut a strip off of the branch. That strip you cut out is where your roots are going to grow from. So if you were to go too deep or cut too shallow, you're going to have a poor success rate in your root growth. So you got to cut that layer just right. And whatever you use, a sharp knife or a razor blade or whatever, make sure it is surgical clean. If you wouldn't cut yourself with it, don't do it. Basically, I'm not saying you got to go cut yourself, but I'm just saying your everything got to be clean. So once you cut that candium layer, well, should I say, cut the bark off down to the candium layer is a better way of saying it, and then you surround it with your grow media, wrap it up with the plastic, and then throw aluminum foil or something dark that light cannot penetrate, and leave it there. Make it in a way that you can remove the layer that you can't see through, that you can remove it and be able to look at it and see if there are any roots growing yet and cover it back up. Because that process varies, the time it varies from species to species and tree to tree. You see what I'm saying? I mean, on average, it'll take about 3 months for this process to take place or whatever, and in some plants it takes a little bit longer or a little bit less. So this is my recommendation as far as that goes. So as far as the grafting goes, that's a different animal in itself, because you got to have like plants. You can't take a daggone apple and think you're going to draft it onto a peach tree. It's not working that way. And certain plants are a little bit harder to take to this process, and this works the same for air layering. Certain plants is a little bit harder to do than others. It's just the nature of the plant. But the main thing you want to look out for as far as grafting is that candium layer. Now, you're not always lucky enough to get two joining areas of the same diameter. You see what I'm saying? So either the smaller diameter of your connecting points, you either got to go one cadmium layer or the other. So if you were to cut your branch that you want to draft onto a trunk, for example, and it's a little bit smaller than the area you want to graft onto that trunk. So when you cut it in a wedge shape, And again, your tools have to be impeccably clean. Okay. You're going to have 2 points of candium layer. This is the key to the success in grafting. You have to match up at least one of those candium layers. You get that done and you seal it up properly. And I would suggest you do a couple of different methods till you find the one that works best for you. Because some people will join them together and they'll melt candle wax over it. Some will use that grafting tape on it. Some will use electrical tape. People do it different ways. But the goal that you're trying to achieve is to keep the wound clean and free from the outside atmosphere so that the wound, because it's a wound, it's open. So you want to keep it clean and you want to keep it covered so that the tree doesn't catch any type of diseases or funguses or anything that's going to happen to it that'll deter it from that graft taking. And then let it be for an extended period of time. And again, you got to do your research because that time period varies from species to species and tree to tree. So you got to do your research in terms of how long, you got to leave it like that before it's ready to remove the bandages, so to speak. And that's pretty much the differences in, grafting and air layering and how to do them and do them. There's many ways to do it. That seems to be the way that works for me.
Okay. Well, that's thanks for that information. And you're right. Everybody do their own. Everybody do things different. So, but I appreciate the information for real, and I know a lot of people appreciate that information as well. For real
Oh,
information.
absolutely.
We appreciate you for that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, because like I wrote in the comment before I came up on the panel, part of growing is spiritual.
Yep.
I think personally that spiritual part of it pretty much dictate what method works best for some people versus methods that work best for other people. It's that
Yeah.
spiritual connection with the plant you're working on, if you even have a spiritual connection. Some people don't. Some people don't believe that plants have, a way to connect to them spiritually, and that's neither here or there. It's just how I do. You know what I'm saying?
Some people laugh when you talk about that. Some people
Yeah, they
laugh
think you crazy.
when you talk about the spiritual part in the garden and
Hmm.
the importance of it. Some people laugh when you say that, but this is
Yes.
for real. There's a
I,
connection. I always talk about this. There's a connection in that garden with your plants. It is. This is why I always say
absolutely.
I do garden on another level because when I start talking, sometimes people, oh, what do you mean connection with plants? And you got to try to
Yeah,
explain, and then the thing is, oh, you just joking, man. But this thing is real. There's a connection, there's an energy in that garden. And if you could find that and connect to your plant with that, you will see a lot more result in your garden. This ain't no joke.
absolutely. Absolutely. I'm in 100% agreement with you on that. Absolutely. Like
If,
in my gardening in
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
go ahead.
In my gardening in Florida, right? I had that connection with my plant. And that was when I discovered that it's a true fact that soil is alive, well, and breathing. All right. So the connection with my plants was so personal, so close that I could literally understand their languages. Plants have two languages. They have a language that they speak to you by you learning how to read the plant. And the
Mhm.
easiest way I can explain this is, when you look at a plant and it's droopy, There's only two reasons a plant will droop. One, it needs water. Two, it's just in the heat of the day. And that's just their way of protecting themselves from over evaporation or what have you. But either way, it's a sign that's telling you one of these two things is going on with that plant.
Yep.
Sometimes drooping means something else is going on. It has a borer, and it depends on the plant as well. But sometimes it means an insect has invaded it. It bored into its trunk or leaf or something.
Sometimes the root,
So that,
sometimes the insect are in the root.
yes, exactly. It's being attacked in some way, some form. And if you know how to read these signs, yes, you can literally look at it as a language. But then
Ye-
there's the spiritual side of it, where, well, with me, I'm sure it's a little bit different with everyone else, but with me, I can hear them, not always understanding what they're saying, but I can hear them to the point that they'll tell you they need this nutrition, that level of nutrition, or whatever it is. And if you have that connection that's ongoing and consistent, you give them that nutrition and they'll sing for you. I don't mean to sound crazy,
No,
but
no,
it's
no.
true.
No, no,
Because when
no,
when I
man.
work,
You ain't
when I
sounding no
work,
crazy here, man. Because
well,
what
to
you
some,
said, what you said, I go through the same thing. You know? So it ain't
yeah,
no crazy. It's the connection you have. Listen,
exactly. It's all
if
about
you,
that connection.
yes, if you listen, if anyone listen to any of my videos when I in the early spring, I've been talking about pepper tree growing taller than you and you pulling them down. You plant them growing. You, I already know this thing, so I already
Hmm.
pre-told it before it happened because I already know in this garden this is what happened every year. So I already know I'm gonna have these plants over my head. I'm
Yeah,
growing I'm growing pepper tree 7 feet tall and still growing. I have
yeah.
a video. Yeah, I have a shot where I measured a pepper tree. That time it was like 6 feet plus.
I mean, I
These
don't
are
think I've
things
seen
I
that short,
already
but
know.
I've seen your pepper plants and I've seen you standing next to them. I got a pretty darn good idea how tall they are. That's
Yes.
for sure. Yeah. And
Yes.
that's what I was saying in the beginning about those nutrients, those microbes not all being the same from region to region. And the older that they are, like you do, you go out in the forest and you move those that leaf litter and you get
Yes.
down to that good stuff and bring it back. That's some powerful stuff. That is powerful because you figure,
Yes.
all right, think about it like this, right? Every ring on a cut tree, every ring represents a year of growth. Even though every ring might be thinner or thicker, that's just telling you how much water that tree had access to that year. Okay? So when you look at, when you take that in consideration, right? We talk about a mighty tree that's probably been growing there 50 years at minimum, if
Hmm.
not a couple of 100 years. You see
Right.
what I'm saying? Every year that tree is dropping its leaves, feeding itself, as well as
Exactly.
all of the other stuff that's going on around it. You see what I'm saying? And you get this
Exactly.
process going
Exactly.
on for that length of time. Remember what I said earlier. If you feed your beds compost long enough, consistently, it'll turn into topsoil.
Definitely.
Whenever you
Definitely.
clear woods, what is the first thing as far as soil you run into? Topsoil,
Yeah.
6 inches. And then you run into the other stuff, Depending on where you are, you hit the clay, I mean the sand first, or you might hit a loomy or whatever. But then you start getting into dirt because the soil has been removed. You see what I mean? So
Mhm.
when you look at it like that, that's proof that all microbes are not the same and they have their benefits and disadvantages according to how you're trying to use them. So when you use them in, say, like a compost tea, for example, when you use those old, healthy, strong, robust microbes in a compost tea, man, you got something that's more powerful than Kryptonite to Superman.
Yes, sir.
I'm serious. You got something going on right there. And that's something I'm trying to create. And what I'm doing, I know I'll never get nowhere near that powerful because my microbes aren't that old. But I'm trying to maximize what I could do with what I have. And so far, I'm getting some pretty decent doggone results, and I'm yet to make compost tea and use it at this point. I will though, but it's coming.
You
So
know,
I'm
you
just saying
know,
that to imagine. Go ahead.
no, what I was
Go
going and
ahead.
say, what I was going and say, you know, I never make I don't make compost. I didn't make compost tea for like 7 years now. I
Mm-hmm.
I know you used to see me in the spring, James. You see when I used to go to the bushes and pick up my leaf and I mean showing people. I mean, you know, because these are things I do and I know the result. This is why I'm sharing these information that whoever have the access to these things. Instead of you run, go to the store, it's better to put on two water boots. You have two water boots and a shovel or a rake,
Montego Blue
and you go
100.
to the bushes and you rake and you bring it to your garden because I'm telling you, these things work awesome. And like when I do my compost pile, you know, a lot of people add meat, eggs, chicken, whatever. You know, I do not add nothing. I just show them right there and allow them to break down for themselves. Then when you go in to the compost, you didn't add nothing, right? But when you go into the compost, you see all kind of strange bugs you never see walking up in the compost that you never see. Nature, all that is nature come together and breaking the compost down for you. You really don't need to add the meat and the, I mean, do what you can do, but I'm just saying, your compost could
Well,
get
you
breakdown without these things. And if you could
right.
get
See,
your compost breakdown in this form, you are creating a very decent soil for yourself.
I agree 100%. I mean, I don't add meat because my compost piles, in my opinion, they're not big enough to handle meat. But what I do though, I'll add bones in it. I'll add different things in it because when you add those bones, for example, right, that's equivalent to bone meal.
Right.
Now, I was in a situation where I had an opportunity to process a couple of chickens for one of my neighbors who was new to the processing part of raising chickens or whatever and wanted to learn how to do it. So what I did from that process, I took the blood and I took the feathers and I put them in my compost. Now, these elements add a new dimension of nutritional value to your compost without running the risk of spoiling your compost, like putting meat in it. You can put meat in a compost pile, but you that's not something you want to do for a household size compost pile. You want to do that on a commercial level with big heaps that's smoking like it's about to burst in flame at any minute. You know what I'm saying? Those
Right.
are the things that could process meat with no problem, no risk of having pathogens and airbornes and none of that crap that goes on from introducing meat to a system like that. You see what I'm saying? So instead of going the meat route, was to me is even better if you was to use biochar or charcoal, specifically something you made yourself from any hardwood.
Right.
Let that run nothing less than 3 months time to allow the charcoal or biochar, whichever one you decide you want to use, right? To allow it to become inoculated, to become inhabited. Because one of biochar, for example, is like the Empire State Building in New York City in terms of microbes being able to inhabit it. That's the reason you want to charge it, take care of it before you introduce it into your garden, because it's a sponge. If you throw it in your garden naked, whatever nutrients you got in that garden, that biochar is going to absorb it and hold it for a period of time, and then it's going to release it back into the soil and act like a time releasing fertilizer. This is why some people it's a up in the air. Some people hate biochar and charcoal. Some people love it to death because not everybody knows how to work with it and how to use it. Now, if you take that stuff instead of putting it in your compost pile and you soak it, compost tea, add in some other nutrients and soak it in there for 4 days or so, up to a week or more, depending on how much you got, and then throw that in your garden, Lord have mercy, look out. You will literally see your plants reach for the sky of about 3 or more inches in a few days. You will see that much growth. And if you don't get the growth, a couple of other things might happen. The colors of your plant is going to get more vivid. They're going to start blossoming. It just depends on what stage your plant is in when you do this. But I promise you, you will see a physical, noticeable difference in your garden when you do that. And you'll get the same results if you were to use a good quality, high nutritional compost and do the same thing. And it'll make those plants do the same thing. The only difference is you're going to need to add compost more often. Once you add the biochar or the charcoal, that's a one-time thing. People think it degrades and decomposes. It does not. It will be there 3 years from now. If you were to dig in your soil, look for it. Promise you, you'll see it. So that's something you don't have to do continuously. You do that one time. Keep in mind what you've done. So when you do things in your soil after that, think of it as repopulating the Empire State Building.
Right.
So what you want to do, well, yes, because that's where your teas, regardless if it's compost tea, worm castings tea, super juice, whatever type of liquid soluble fertilization you use, you're feeding microbes or adding microbes when you do that. And when you do that in a soil that already has been inoculated with biochar or charcoal, you're repopulating that.
You know what?
Because those microbes don't last forever, especially on the surface. Because if it gets too hot, they'll die off. That's why you find most of your microbes below the surface, where it's cool, it's moist, providing you keeping up with your watering or whatever. But above that, in that dry zone, there's very little, if any, microbes are there. So when you throw that liquid on there, that liquid gold, yeah, you repopulating all of that. And this is why your plants explode, because the action or should I say the byproduct of your actions, of your microbes, is can be looked at like soluble nutrients your plants can take up right away. That's how it acts. This is why your results is so quick and so prolific once you start doing certain things like this to your garden.
You know what? Some of my
Uh-huh.
pepper, some of my pepper, right? I noticed I went in the garden the other day and I noticed the top, like it was like a scotch. I noticed a few of them had this scotch where even the blossom had scotch and fell. It did look a kind of blacky. So I'm saying, what could happen? We're going on here. So I go where I does burn wood and I grab some
Mm-hmm.
ashes. And I grab some ashes from there, scrape it up, and just sprinkle it around all of the pepper root. And the
Right.
rain come, the rain come, and listen me, everything just turned green. All the
Mm-hmm.
scarlet that was there just disappeared. All the leaf just turned green and start pushing out blossom again. So this is why I does always tell people, does always say, when you see your plants indicate something, like it needs something, it lack of something, that does not
Yeah.
mean you got to run to the store and buy fertilizer to throw around their root. That's something, a lot of times, that's not what the plant needs. You have what the
Yeah.
plant need right there, but you ignoring what you have and run and go buy something else. That doesn't even make sense. So, yes, the
and,
ashes.
and you and you 100% right, because what it is that you use those ashes, right? And a lot of people get this confused that think that biochar, charcoal, ashes are interchangeable. They're not. When that wood burns to the point that it's ashes, it's predominantly phosphorus, has some calcium in it, some other nutrients in it, but the most prolific nutrient is phosphorus and potassium, right?
Mhm.
These are the things plants need for their blossoming period. That's why when you put it on there and it rained, and that rain washed those nutrients down into the soil and made it available for the root system of the plant. And that plant just transformed. It got greener, the blossoms no longer fell off, and those that remained became stronger. That's why. Because
Yes.
I did a video, I forget the name of the video, where I showed that the blossoms on my pole beans, they just fell off. A whole bunch of them laying down on the ground. So what I did, I didn't have any ashes at that time. I mean, I have wood, but it's not the kind of wood that I feel comfortable using the ashes for in that manner. So I did the next best thing and got me some Epsom salt, dissolved it in water, and hit it. Gave it a nice dose of it. And problem was over. Problem was over. All the blossoms that was produced thereafter, and the ones that didn't fall yet did not fall, and the new ones came, stayed, and produced beans. That's why. So yes, ashes. Some people, the old folks, call it potash or whatever. That's good. That's dynamite to use in the garden.
Yeah.
Me personally, I don't add it directly to the garden. Very seldom I do that. I mainly add it to my compost, because
Okay.
my whole goal in my compost process is the more diversity of nutrients, the better. And if
Yeah,
you
I
allow a
agree.
little bit of time to go by between adding certain nutrients to it, it allows that the activity in that pile, the combination of the microbes in there, the combination of the bugs that you spoke about, all in there doing something specific in there. And
Yep.
those bugs are a good thing because they are producing manure as well as doing what they do in that pile,
Yep.
creating that heat and everything else that's killing off those bad seeds and this, that, and other harmful pathogens This is
Yeah.
why, folks that are serious and really know about that compost, they got a thermometer. They'll stick that sucker in there and read the temperature of it or whatever, and things like that. So when that process is done, you have something that's highly, not only highly nutritional and nutritional value, it's balanced to the point that it's not too much of any one thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
And the thing about that, doing it that way, right? Plants will not take up nutrients they don't need. A lot of people don't know that about plants. They won't take up nutrients they won't need. However, they are no different than any other living thing, to the point that if you have an abundance of one nutrition and not enough of others, naturally they're going to feed on the nutrients they don't necessarily need, because that's all they freaking got to eat.
Right.
So by saying that, I could bring that brings me to the point of the difference in commercial growing and organic growing. Whereas your commercial fertilizers concentrate on the main three, those three numbers, regardless of what the number is, the NPK, right? If that's all the plant has to nutrient wise, of course it's going to eat on that. So back to earlier part of this conversation, where you and I both agreed, if your soil is unhealthy, you're going to have a higher bug problem.
Yes.
This is exactly
Yes.
what's happening on a farm level, where you got acres and acres and acres of one crop with only three levels of nutrients that they're eating.
Right.
So that makes for a weaker plant. Just like us humans, we can't sit here and just eat meat, 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 meat for our source of protein. We got to get that protein from plants just as much as protein from meat. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Or otherwise, we are going to have health problems down the road. Plants are no different than we are. Their nutritional value may be a little bit different, but as far as principle in itself, they are no different than we are. So as
True.
far as the plant goes, this is why them farmers got to go and spray this and put that on there, and this, that,
Yes.
and the freaking other. You see what I'm saying? Whereas
Yes.
that's because they're trying to make up for what they're doing. Because when you use, see, commercial fertilizers, plants don't care. They will use that nutrients just the same as they would use it from an organic source. The
Right.
difference is commercial fertilizers kill soil. They kill the life that's in the soil. That's the main difference. This is why farmers deal with a lot of runoff. And being that they've putting so much of these chemicals out there, when that soil do run off, it's carrying nutrients with it that's causing problems in bodies of water, algae
Right.
blooms, and this, that, and the other. It's all connected. You know what I mean? To whereas nowadays, which is a theory for me. I'm waiting for some research to come out to see what's going to happen, because they're trying to correct this problem through cover cropping, and cover cropping is no different in the sense of nutritional value as organic growing. The only difference is they're still concentrating on the three nutrients, N, P, and K. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So even
Right.
though it's coming from a natural source, I'm waiting to see what the problem is going to arise, that's going to may pop up 20 to 50 years down the road, when more and more farmers catch on and start utilizing this practice. Yes, I think that it will help significantly as far as the runoff and the erosion and things of that nature. But at the same time, will it solve the problem in terms of needing so much pesticides and herbicides and everything else that they're spraying, due to the fact that they're still concentrating on the big three versus the whole gamut? Because in
Right.
nature provides 18 to 23 different levels of nutrients, different nutrients naturally for their plants in the wild. So this is why you walk through the forest, you walk through woods or what have you, and you look around, you'll see very few, if any, plants with diseases.
Right, right,
But you look
right,
into the farmer, you can see a whole daggone field got problems of some sort. Rather it's insect or fungus or something going on with the plant itself, or you got some type of problem that you're seeing in, the farmer production of crop or whatever that you don't see in the wild.
right, right.
And that's
That's
how
true.
that's a yeah, and that's another way how I've developed what I do and the type of experiments that I do, because I go sometimes and I'll sit in nature and I'll just study the plants, study what's around the plant, how much leaf litter is there versus how much soil, and how deep is that soil before I hit dirt, and all that, and look at the root systems. And I'd be out there like a kid in a candy store. Be
Yeah,
trying to, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, some people would think I done lost my rocker and things of that nature, but then they wonder why. Like a couple of my neighbors, it's like, how do your garden grow so well and you don't use nothing? And I was
right.
like, I do use everything. It's just that this is the reason why you put your garbage can out for the man to pick up every week, and I could run 2, sometimes 3 weeks before I need to put my garbage out.
Right, right.
And they look at me like I got another head growing out of the side of my neck, because they don't understand what I'm doing and things of that nature, to the point that, yeah, man, it's kind of crazy, because when you run across people like that don't want to really understand what you do, but yet they ask the question
Right,
for the wrong reason. The
right.
reason they ask the question, because now they got to figure out how they're going to throw a monkey wrench in the game, which is why
Exactly.
this might be my last season growing in this particular location. And I hope not, because I mean, just the way certain conversations go, I know they're watching my video. So they know a lot more of what and why and how I do what I do pertaining to growing my garden than they ever knew before I started my channel.
Right, right, right.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's the
so
thing.
it's kind of,
Go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, it's kind of like a catch 22, trying to show people how, to pretty much survive, because the food, if the food is worse than it's ever been in my history of eating productive food. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's coming up on a time. Certain foods is going to be scarce. If you don't grow it, you ain't gonna have it, because most of us ain't gonna be able to afford to grow it. And it's going to be one of those situations that it's cheaper for a farmer to turn his
Right,
crop
right,
under the ground than to send it to the market, because he can't afford to send it to the market. And these are the things that people are not really seeing, what's coming and the ramifications of what could happen. I mean, it's nothing wrong with preparing for the best. I mean, hoping for the best, but at the same time, it makes more sense to prepare for the worst, the best you can anyway. You know
Yep,
what I mean?
yep.
So if you know how to grow a garden basically fueled by your waste, what better damn system is that? There is no waste in nature. Nature wastes nothing. They
Nope,
use it one way or the
nope.
other. So as a organic gardener, you got to learn how to do the same thing. And granted, that way may be different from region to region for various reasons, but the process of the principle is still the same. Honestly speaking, I'm doing very much the same things I did in Florida. I'm doing it here. It's just that the process is not as fast, because I have less material to work with,
Right.
and the material is different because the material just don't grow here. Yeah, I got weeds growing all around me, but no, I don't want them weeds, man. They're gonna break my freaking back when they start popping up in my daggone beds. Got to pull them up every, man. Listen.
Yeah, it is. That's the thing, man. With these garden and weeds, man, listen me, these weeds
Yeah.
just shoot up so fast. And
They
like
outgrow
you
your
were saying,
crops and choke them out.
yeah, like you were saying, they will kill your plants. They grow faster than your plants. They will
Yes.
naturally
And
kill
when you
your plants if you allow them.
and in my case, the reason I grow in grow beds so I can have control over those weeds. And then
Right,
doing it that way, I might as well grow directly in the ground. You're
right.
defeating the whole purpose, you know?
Yes. I used to
That's for
grow
sure.
I used to grow like dig banks. That's what I used to do first. But what I realized happening, a lot of my compost get washed away like that. Like when it rain,
Uh-huh.
because it's on a slope. So a lot of the
Oh, I
compost
see.
get washed away. So then I say, hey, no, I'm working too hard to build this. So I start putting
Right.
board around, just around,
So
but
let me ask you,
to keep it from washing away all these composts, I'm working so hard to build, and then when the
right,
rain
to
comes,
build up and accumulate, right. So let me
it
ask you a
wash it
question.
away. So I
In
say, no,
So
yeah.
in that scenario right there, would it have helped to turn the compost into your soil more than just having it up on the surface, or you didn't do it because you practice a no-till method?
Well, what I do, let me tell you
Mm-hmm.
how I start the raised bed. What I do, I just basically it's not really a no dig. I wouldn't say it's a no dig method. Because what I
Okay.
do, even I build a raised bed, I still dig down as deep as I want inside the raised bed. You got me? So I still
Okay.
go down deep
Right.
at
Right.
12 inches. So it's not really a no till. It's no dig. It is dig because I
Mm-hmm.
still gotta go down there. So the board now that I put around it help keep from the rain washing away all the compost that creating, which is the minerals and all these things. The rain could wash them away. So what I do, I put the board around. So every fall, all the leaves around that drop and all the dry leaf, I add them in the bed and add some dirt on there and just leave them for the spring.
Right. Right. That
And
makes a
that
lot of
just
sense.
works. So when the spring come, I'm ready to plant. Even though
Mm-hmm.
while you planting, you still finding leaf. That doesn't mean anything. Sometimes
Right.
while I'm
Exactly.
digging, I'm still gonna find leaf that did not break down enough.
But here's the thing about that though, planter. Even though the leaf hasn't broke down, right? It still doesn't mean that that leaf is not inoculated with beneficial microbes and good
Exactly.
bacteria. You
Exactly.
see what I'm saying? So in that
Exactly.
sense, you're right. It doesn't matter if it's not broke down or not. It still has a role that it's playing in terms of
Yep.
keeping those microbes and beneficial bacteria alive and healthy and active. The key is keeping them
Exactly.
active because if they're active, that means over time they're breaking that leaf down, and the byproduct of them breaking that leaf down is viable nutrient that your plant that's growing within that root zone of the organic matter can take that nutrients up right away. And that same exact principle is why worm castings is better than compost. As badass as compost could be, microbes from the worm castings is even better.
Okay. Yes,
So
yes,
what are
yes.
your take on no till?
Okay. If I gotta do no till, if I gotta do no till, the
Uh-huh.
soil, you got to have at least 12 inches of soil. If I got to do no till, it
So
got to
grow
be at
media.
least 12 inches of soil. I still got to able to plant my plants them a certain depth.
Right.
Because the depth is very important. The is very important. I really believe that. So I don't
I,
mind
I
doing
agree with
it.
you.
It have to be at least 12 inches of depth of dirt for me to do it.
And I agree with you because even though the 12-inch method won't work everywhere, most places it will. But it does have its benefits because it not only allow the plant access to nutrients it normally wouldn't get by being planted on the surface. And it also has the ability to have access to water, more moisture than it would being planted on the surface. It
Definitely.
has its benefits, but when you look at a place like Central Florida, because not all of Florida, but most of Florida, it don't have soil. It has sand. So
Mhm.
in a situation like that, I'm not 100% sure that method would be as beneficial as it would in other areas that has soil or dirt. You see what I'm saying? Because
Mhm.
how can sand hold moisture unless it has a bottom? You see what I'm
Right,
saying? And if you're
right,
planting directly in the soil, where's the soil? I mean, the moisture holding benefits. And in addition to the fact, where is your extra nutrients? If
right,
it's sand, sand will have next to no. I mean, it does have some, but the nutrients it dominates in is calcium. That's your number one nutrient in the sandy soil. Is
yeah,
calcium. You don't have no clay, so you don't have no minerals or very little clay. So again, your mineral level is low or what have you. You know what I mean? And that's where situations like that, raised beds, spaghetti style gardenings and square foot gardenings come into play in
right.
situations like that. So it's about adapting organic practices to where you are
Definitely,
and
definitely.
apply them. Yeah, and applying them in a way that it'll benefit you, because like in my opinion, based on my experience of growing on an organic level, to me, no dig practices doesn't have much benefits if you don't have a um, mycelium based soil, meaning
Right,
a
right,
lot of wood organic matter, because the
right,
reason you do your no dig or no till practices is because you don't want to break that mycelium highway, if you will.
right,
You see what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of nutrients traveling through those mycelium roots, if you want to call them roots. You know what I mean? It's a fungi. It's a chain of fungi that only occurs when you got wood matter. Not necessarily wood, but that's the number one source. But when you got wood-like matter and a good abundance of it in your soil, that's when you get the benefits from no-till methods, because
right,
you keep that chain and you don't break that chain. So the only digging you're gonna do is like if you're planting starts, for example. All right, you dig and you break your chain to plant that start, but you're not turning over your whole soil to whereas that chain can now close that hole up quicker than you think it would and
right,
begin to nourish and feed that plant. But if you don't have the type or if you don't produce the type of soil that has that organic matter in it, no dig really. It has benefits because of the microbes, like I explained earlier. Your
right.
your surface, your microbes is pretty much dead at surface. You see what I'm saying? But
No, you're
outside of
right.
that, there's there is no real benefit in no till. And most of the time, if you a person that no till practice properly, he has a ground cover of some type, mulch or fabric, or he got some type of ground cover to stop that surface from drying out, to keep that mycelium chain healthy and doing what it does, providing and shifting those nutrients where they need to go.
Right.
It's an amazing process how that works. And it's like, how can plants do that? But plants, I'm telling you, they are freaking amazing when you sit down and really study them and understand what they do, how they do it, why
Yeah,
certain plants do it and certain plants don't. And so it's just amazing how that whole system of plant life works. And soil, of course. I mean, you
it
really
is.
don't have,
It is.
plant life without good soil, but yes, how that all works together. And it's like, wow, it's amazing, man. It's mind blowing.
It is. It is. It is. It's so amazing. You know, like I was always mention, I don't know how other people see gardening. I don't know if they just see gardening as planting some food and get some food and that's it. I see it different, I see it really different than that. Because
And I agree with you.
yeah, I see it because I've been doing garden so long, but yet I still learn something every day. And then some
Right.
people, sometimes when I tell people this, they say, "How the hell you learn God something every day? What is there for you learn every day?" I say, "Man, there's
A lot.
always something to learn in this place.
Yes.
These
If
plants
it's
will
not
always
something
show
to
you something different that
hmm
you didn't see years ago." So it
yes.
is, it is important.
It's and a lot of stuff you learn on accident. For example, when I first got into producing my own compost, because I basically had to create my own soil in Florida, right?
Right.
So the early days of creating my own compost, right? I knew enough from studying about the process that the materials that I was using would produce a carbon based compost, right? But at the same time, I didn't know that in addition to a high carbon base, which is a good thing, I also was producing a high nitrogen based compost. Whereas I was
Mm,
scratching my head because 2 seasons in a row, I would have bell pepper plants in the neighborhood of 6 to 9 inches tall.
mm,
Pepper plants at that height are not ready to produce. But them
right.
suckers were full of blossom and had gigantic pepper on it. It wouldn't be loaded with peppers. It would have one pepper on it, but that sucker would be so heavy it's literally sitting on the ground. And I'm like,
Right,
this is
right.
not normal. Was and it took for my second season to see this phenomenon that it really grabbed my attention that I had to go and find out what is going on. And it was that scenario that got me started pretty much in learning what plants do with certain nutrients and why
Mm,
certain nutrients you need at certain stages of a plant's life versus other stages of the plant's life. And
right, right.
nitrogen for a plant that young is too early for it to have that level of nitrogen. You see what I'm saying? And
Yes,
that's why
yes.
it began to produce at such an early age that I literally had to pick the pepper and let it ripen in the window because it was sitting on the ground and I would have lost the pepper
Right,
because it would
right.
have rotted from sitting on the ground. You see what I'm saying? And I'm
Yes,
looking
yes.
at this phenomenon like because I know peppers, they can be a bush, a pepper bush can be loaded. You could get a dozen or more peppers off of one plant if
Yeah,
it's vibrant, healthy, as such as mine were. It's just that they were miniature versions at that point, trying to produce a more than it could handle. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So then that's when I realized it had too much nitrogen at such an early age or early stage in its development that it was in layman's terms hitting puberty instead of 14, it was hitting it at 5 years old, so to
right,
speak.
right.
Kind of, you know what I mean, when you look at it like that. So when I realized that and did a little bit more studying and realized what material I was using in my compost production that was producing that level of nitrogen, which were um, my yard plants, when I trimmed the bushes and cut the grass and stuff like that, that was the bulk of my nitrogen. So especially the grass. And
Mm-hmm.
Florida has a lot of that. So when I cut down on that, not throwing the grass away, I just wouldn't use so much of the green grass and allow what was left to dry and use it as part of brown instead of green. That problem corrected itself. You know what I'm saying? And then the next time around, I didn't have that problem. Whereas my blossoms came later. The plants grew bigger before they started putting out blossoms or whatever. And
Right.
I had no more issues after that. And then that would led me to get more into what certain nutrients do to plants, what plants need them at certain stages. And I'm still studying that whole phenomenon because every plant needs different nutrients at different times. And I
Yes.
really need to get a handle on that because I made a statement in one of my videos that I want to practice tier level gardening. So what I mean by that is like right now I did a video showing an example of that where's my giant zucchini, right? The hybrid one.
Mm-hmm.
I have spinach growing under the canopy of that, and it's the reason it hasn't bolted yet. And I've harvested. I haven't showed me harvesting spinach, but I have harvested spinach off of those few spinach plants down there.
Right,
And I
right.
did that as an experiment to be able to grow more crop in less space without
Right.
a competition between the plants as far as whether that competition is with nutrition or space. You see what I'm saying? So by
Mm-hmm.
me studying a little more to know what nutrition plant needs at a certain time in their development would allow me to organize how I plant certain plants to get that phenomenon I'm looking for. You know what I'm saying? So that I could grow, for example, the spinach, for example. I could grow that, which is a winter crop, in the middle of the freaking summer.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like I did an experiment where I got a nice freaking cabbage out there that I just harvested in the summer. That's a fall crop.
Right,
And that
right.
wasn't due to a canopy, but how I discovered how to grow it off season, I can easily introduce it into the canopy style of growing. So right there's three plants that I could use. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then I got to figure out, being that okra are slow starters. They start off slow, but then they explode in terms of how they grow. You know what I mean? Now I got to figure out what is the best plants to plant okra around that I don't get that hindrance in terms of too much shading too early in its life.
Right,
That I
right,
end up with the problem that
right.
I have now, whereas it was starved from direct sunlight too long. That now I'm getting like maybe one or two okra per week off of one plant when I should be doubling and tripling that at this age in that plant's life. Right now, I should have more there going okra than I know what to do. So that's what I mean. My experimentation is more on a method of growing less than a nutritional value. I almost got that part down pat. I got it down pat enough that no matter what I plant, I could grow. It's just a matter of me pairing it with whatever else that I'm growing that they don't compete with each other, and that's going to hinder my production. If that makes sense to you.
No, it make a lot of sense. And this is the thing. And I've been talking about these things for a long time. This is why I say you have to study your plant. You got to know
Yes,
what the
I
plant
agree.
like. I always mention these things because I know. for great result, you have to know the things that you plant like. You have to know whether your plant do not like too much sun. You have to know these things, and then when you apply
Yeah.
them, that's when you get great result. Like when you was talking
Mhm.
about this companion planting, I think
Yes,
that's what they
yes, that's
call it, where
exactly
they
it.
plant different plants. And you're right.
So that
Yes,
they grow
planting
together
plant,
and not against each other. They help each other grow.
definitely. And over the
Hmm.
years, these are things I've been doing. Trying plants with plants, pepper with tomato trees, pepper with okra tree,
Right.
you know,
Hmm.
separate, and then, separate them over the years. And then over the years, I have realized the benefit of companion planting. If you really know what you're
And there,
doing, that's why it's a
and now
process.
I think, and here's what I think a lot of people get confused when it comes to companion planting. They don't understand companion planting comes in tiers. So,
Yeah,
for example, you take corn and beans, for example, and plant them together or close to each other, right?
right,
The bean is a nitrogen affixer. The corn is a high nitrogen feeder.
right,
So they will complement each other well on a nutritional standpoint. All right.
definitely.
But now you take and introduce marigolds and various other crops and flowers that their companion level draw in beneficial insects to
Right,
keep check on the bad insects. You see? And then you have another tier where you use ground cover. For example, the three sisters, which the beans and the corn is part of. The third sister is squash.
right,
They got broad leaves, and a lot of them grow on vines. So what happens there is they'll shade and cover the ground, slow
right.
down evaporation, so the soil holds more moisture for a
Moisture,
longer
right,
period of time, which gives the plant more time to absorb nutrition as well as protecting the natural microbes and beneficial bacteria that's in the soil that's doing a job in the soil, and the byproduct of that is nutrient the plant can take up right away or
right.
whenever it needs it. You see what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's the thing you got to understand about companion planting is the tiers that they come in, and matching the plant to those tiers in terms of
hmm,
what you like to eat or what you like to grow or whatever the case may be. Whatever you're doing in your growth space, you got to mix and match those plants to achieve these different tiers and be successful at it. And it's sometimes not always easy because you have other, like my situation, you have the desert environment to contend with in addition to that. So you got to not only mix and match the right plants, you got to get the right variety of these different plants that's suitable for such a climate in which I grow in, or whatever climate anyone else is growing in. Because what might do well in my climate may not do well in yours, and vice versa. Even though it's the same plant, it's just a different variety.
right,
Like, for
right.
example, you got a 45-day variety versus a 75-day variety of corn, for example, or cabbage or something like that. You know what I mean? The shorter one would do better in my environment
I
because
agree.
I'm in a microclimate that I experience six, 6A, 6B, just depending on what the weather's going to do that year. Like this year, my climate was closer to a 6B than a 6. Last season, my climate was closer to a 6 than B or A.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
So I
yes.
have to be able to adapt through those different swings and stages through my weather. And one of the ways that I find I could that could help me do that is by picking the right variety of crop that I grow that will do well no matter which one of them come by, or if I have to, if I'm here long enough to be able to sort through that, if I have to, I'll have different varieties just according to what the season is going to be. And I'll know at the beginning of the season. You know, like last season, even though I didn't, I could have planted in the middle of April last season.
Mm-hmm.
But I went by the almanac. So this season, I went by the almanac and turned out I actually planted a little bit early according to what the weather actually did against what the almanac told in terms of when the last frost was going to be. It was correct in terms of the last frost. However, it was incorrect in terms of what the temperatures would be for that time of year. They were around 15, 20 degrees lower than what the almanac told me. And this is what really halted my garden in the beginning. And to be honest, I was downright nervous. I was nervous for a lot of reasons, but the main reason I was nervous is because I just started my channel. All of this time being, in the gardening community, giving out all types of suggestions and advice, this, that, the other. And here it is, I can't grow a damn garden. So yes, I was nervous because now my knowledge and my big mouth was at stake, that I needed to be able to stand up to what the hell I've been telling people all of these months. You see what I'm saying? So yes, that's the thing that made me, more nervous than anything. And then that big rain came and the garden just exploded. And it's like, okay, which I was saying earlier, which is one of the reasons why a lot of my stuff is too closely planted, because that slow start made me think, yeah, these seeds ain't gonna make it. The cold killed them. Some of them might not have been viable, or a combination of the both. Let me re-sow, at least that way I could have a harvest.
Right,
you see what I'm saying? And then when that big rain came, I mean, bruh, there's stuff that been in the ground for 3 weeks or more started popping up.
Yes,
and,
yes.
And
trust me, I know what you're
all my
talking
stuff was
about.
too close together and it was competing. And I was too humble or reluctant or whatever the proper word to use for it, but I just didn't want to start pulling stuff up. Because just my luck, I pulled this up to make room for whatever, and it turns out not make it. And I ended up pulling out the stronger of what was there or whatever. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna roll with it, And sometimes you don't always make the right decisions, but
Right,
this is where taking your notes come into play, because you, like right now, for example, the season is starting to wind down for some. For others, they're getting in their fall crops or whatever.
right.
So right now, they may have a little time to sit back and reflect on the notes that they took from the beginning of the season to now, and be able to compare last year's or last season's notes. And a lot of times by doing that, you can see a pattern, or you can see solutions to problems that you had that you couldn't find a viable solution for. Going through your notes give you that edge. Okay, let me try this next year or that or the other. Because judging by last season, I would have never thought that I would need a cold frame. Yeah, I need a cold frame, bro. Because if I'm going to be fluctuating between zone B, A, B, I mean, zone 6, zone 6B, zone 6A. If I'm going to be fluctuating between them, I find it very difficult to be as successful as I can be without a cold frame. Because if I had a cold frame, my garden would have grown this year just as good as it did last year.
Right.
And I wouldn't have lost what I've lost this year, because what I've lost this year was due to the cold nights. And it's kind of funny, because you take my yellow pear tomatoes and you take my pole beans, right? This time last year, they they had already given me a lot of tomatoes and beans. They just started giving me tomatoes and beans about a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Okay, I got you.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yes, yes.
that time or that early cold set the garden back to the point that the weather's getting ready to change, and some of my plants is just ramping up as far as their production. And if I had a cold frame, I could prevent that or extend it, depending on the crop. I mean, I couldn't do it. Well, I probably could do it with my pole beans. I'm just going to have to get them off of that trellis and let them come down under the cold frame or whatever. My squash, I could probably extend those. And a few other crops I could probably extend. But in the beginning, if I could give them a good start, I may be able to get those plants to go to their full end before I have to do anything
Right,
outside of harvest, whatever is there. You know what I mean? And if I can get into that scenario, I may not have to extend it due to the fact that it's given me the amount that I need to eat and put away, so I could have throughout the winter to munch out and eat off of.
right.
You see what I mean? So
Yeah,
yeah, that cold frame would it's a game changer in my situation.
I got what you're saying. I got what you're saying. Yes, man.
Hmm.
It was a man. This conversation was really interested. Really, lot of information, man. For real. I
Well, yeah,
truly
I mean,
appreciate you coming on here tonight. For real.
well, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to really sit down and talk to you gardening because I noticed in the earlier on we would end up bumping heads, and that's I would take the blame for that because hey, I was the first one to tell anybody I'm the world's worst daggone speller. So if I can't spell, my punctuation is toe up too. You know what I'm saying? So
Right,
I'm thinking a lot of the bumping heads that we've been doing was due to the fact that not really understanding what I'm trying to, tell the people as well as communicate to you. But if we sitting here talking and having a conversation, the way we grow is not that different from each other. In fact, the only difference in how you and I grow is due to our location.
right, right,
Because a lot of
right.
stuff you do, I have done, but it's not viable for me to do where I am. Now, if I was in a different location, I'd be doing a lot of the same things you done, except
Right.
one exception. You plant deep, and I had to think about that because I've thought about using it out here where I am here. The
Mm-hmm.
difference is that the way that this native soil is, all right, if I, for example, it hadn't rained in a while, if I were to dig in that native soil, I would dig 2+ feet, and those
Okay.
2+ feet would be dry soil before I hit any soil with moisture.
Oh, wow.
Not only would that soil be dry, all right, it would be brick like.
Mm.
This is one of the reasons why I'm so big on trying to produce me a level of organic matter so I can stop that soil from becoming so brick like. And with that
Right,
organic
right.
matter in there, what will help that. You
Yes,
see what I'm
yes.
saying? And this is another reason why I'm kind of leaning toward doing some crop. What the hell do they call it? I just was talking about it earlier. Anyway, it's where
Oh,
you grow
all right.
crops,
Planting
cover
different
crop,
crop together.
cover the cover crop. And one of the cover crops that I'm looking at to combat this particular problem is I think they call it icicle or ice queen, ice something. It's a type of radish that grows between 12 and 18 inches down into the earth. And that will help me break that hard pan up. And being that I'm not, that's a lot of daggone radish. I ain't gonna be eating them all. You see what I'm
Okay,
saying?
okay,
So
okay.
that will also allow me to add some nutritional value into the soil if I was to break it up and turn it into the soil. Just take out whatever I want to eat and just turn the rest into the soil. And I've been really thinking about that because that type of crop, at least for a season or two, so I don't get overrun with one level of nutrients. You see what I'm saying?
Right,
Maybe
right.
do it 1 year, right? And then at the end of the season, maybe throw down some what do you call it? Some lentil beans or some other type of cover crop. Even I was even thinking about because I'm not sure if my soil will support it, so I had to do a little bit more research before I risk my sources. But to plant some wheat beans and
Mm,
hopefully, I mean, I'm sorry, not wheat beans, wheat berries is what I meant to say,
okay.
and grow them, replenish my stock in wheat berries, and use the rest of that plant as ground cover. Leave the roots in the ground to do what they need to do. Just figure out a way to terminate it and be able to plant in it and use the plant itself as a mulch. And I've
Right,
been really
right.
thinking about it, but I didn't want to run the risk of losing the wheat beans that I have until I've done my research and figure out what nutritional value they need to grow well and see what I could do to come as close, if not match, what they need to grow and in order to give me what I need. And that would help me out significantly because I am losing production in terms of how healthy my soil is because it's bare in the beginning until my
Okay.
plants grow and mature and get leaves and start to cast shadows and everything onto the soil. Until that point, it's best that I have some type of ground cover. And I think wheat would be a good candidate for that because I could benefit from harvesting the wheat berries off of it and use the plant in my growing practices, leaving the roots in the ground so that the microbe will have some organic matter to begin to feed on, and that will break down and become fertilizer for the crops that I'm doing, and
Right,
then rotate that crop out from different cover crop every year. Then that way I'll have a nice rounded level of nutrients and not just so much of one type of nutrients or one set of nutrients. Because the thing about nutrients is that nitrogen is not all the same. You know what I
right,
mean? Potassium is
right.
not all the same. That's why you have so many different sources of different nutrients. That's why you always hear me say the more the better as far as diversity in amending and fertilizing your soil. The more diversity, the better. That way, you
Dep
don't have too much of nothing or too much of one kind of
What?
anything.
Yes,
You got a nice
balance.
rounded
Yes,
of everything, and
balance.
that's the key.
Basically,
Right,
you
the
see,
balance, exactly.
yeah, when you allow nature to do the job,
Your
nature
work, your
balance out
workload
everything
drop.
for you. And
Hmm.
this ain't no joke. It basically, okay, for instance, right? You building your compost in a corner and
Uh
you
huh.
only adding stuff to it. And just nature just doing the work to break it down. You're not adding anything. When nature
Right.
finish with the compost, it balance. Everything is just balance. So that's why I mostly allow nature for do the work instead of me trying to put this and put that. I just get the leaf.
Right.
Sometimes I go and I grab different trees, leaf from different trees and add them.
Yes, exactly.
You
Because
know?
of the root system is different on different trees. Different
Yes,
trees, that root level is different as far as the depth. There's some trees even have a tap root. They're picking up and drawing nutrients that a tree is the only thing that nutrient is available.
yes.
And then you taking the leaves from it. Yes, man, you are making some powerhouse nutritional valuable compost. And that's what I was saying earlier when we was talking about the wood ashes. I generally add them to my compost more so than adding them directly into the garden, because
Right.
that compost is active, alive, and it's going to balance out whatever that potash or wood ash rather is might have the potential of offsetting. That compost is going to balance it out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? The same worms do the same thing. If you
Mm-hmm.
have you have an abundance of worms in your grow pots or your grow beds or what have you, if there's an imbalance there, those worms will go to work and balance that out.
Yep.
Believe it or not. You
Yep.
know, because I've raised worms too. I mean, I haven't done any videos on my worms or whatever because right now I'm in the stage of building my population up because I don't have many of them. But I
Okay.
do raise worms too. You see what I'm saying? And I've known about worms long years ago. I used to work for this establishment. It was a native nursery,
Okay.
one of a few nurseries that I've worked for over the years. But this one just happened to be a native one that sold native things due to Central Florida. Any native plant in Central Florida, this nursery had it. So there is where I learned how to raise worms. There is where I learned how to harvest honey with bees because they had beehives there, and I was one of the people that helped care for the bees. I wasn't the head, but I was involved in that as well as harvesting the honey and stuff like that. And I was the one who built the coop and the run because he was going planning on getting chickens and selling eggs out of there too. And he had all of the native edibles and things like that. And that's where I learned that there was a difference in poke salad and poke weed. They're two different plants. They are related. You could do a lot of the same things with both plants, but they are different plants. The poke weeds, the berries will grow in a cluster similar to how a cluster of grapes grow.
Right.
Whereas the berries from poke salad, which I think you was asking questions about it on one of your videos while I was telling you about that
Right.
plant.
I have the pork
It's
weed.
it's
I have a lot of
right.
pork weed.
You have poke salad, not poke weed. You
Oh,
have
pork
poke
weed I
salad.
have. The one I
Poke salad,
have a
bro.
lot of berries. It grow a lot of red berries.
Yes,
Like
it has a lot of berries, but their berries are a little bit similar to how elderberries form that
yes,
umbrella.
yes,
Whereas the poke salad you're talking about, their berries basically form like a. You ever watch the guys parasail from a boat? See how
yeah.
the
I know
shape
they look.
of the parachute that's how those berries form on the poke salad. On the poke weed, their berries form like a cluster of grapes. In the poke weed, their berries are like a lighter blue, whereas the poke salad, their berries is deep purple, almost black when they're ripe.
Okay, okay,
That's the
okay.
difference.
So I got the
You see what
salad.
I'm saying?
So could you eat
Yeah, you
them?
have the salad. That yes, that's the one I grew up eating.
I
And you make
have a
wine
ton
and
load of
ink
them.
out of the berries. Yes. See the way I grew up eating that plant you have, which is the poke salad, right? We
Hmm.
would take equal portions and we would do it one of two ways. It would be equal portion of collard greens, mustard greens, and poke salad, and we cook them together. Or equal portion of collard greens and cabbage and poke salad. That's the way we ate them growing up. A lot of people think that plant's poison. There ain't nothing poison about that plant except one thing. If you're going to ingest those berries, they better be right. Don't be messing with them berries if they're not right. That's when they're poison. Well,
Oh,
I wouldn't say that they're poison then. It's just that they don't necessarily agree with your body, not necessarily poison. You see
right,
what I'm saying? It won't
right.
kill you, it make you sick as a dog. You see what I'm saying? But when those berries
Mhm.
are ripe and that deep purple, almost black, you can make ink from it. You can make wine from it. You could do a lot of things with those berries once they're ripe. Don't be
Oh,
messing with them if
wow.
they ain't ripe if you don't know what you're doing. But outside of that, that plant is not poison. People think it is, but it's not. I grew up eating that plant.
That's why I never mess with it because I don't know how to use it, so I didn't want to use it, period, and messed up. But I have a lot of
Right.
those
I mean,
plants.
I understand. It's best to be safe than sorry, but I'm telling you that plant is very edible. You know what I
Oh,
mean? You could do
wow.
as far as eating those leaves, yes. Pick them daggone leaves and process them the same exact way you would process collard green, mustard green, or any type
Wow, you
of
sick,
green
man.
or whatever.
I be just be cutting down
Yes,
them
some
thing like
people even
crazy.
saute them with olive oil and onion. Hmm
Wow.
And those plants, they well, especially on your property, I wouldn't be surprised if those plants is between 10 and 12 feet tall.
No, they grow up. No, they grow
That
real
they are
tall. These things grow real
yes,
tall.
when
I
they
just have
are
to cut them down.
right, and they'll spread. They'll spread
Yes,
out too.
and they grow everywhere.
They will spread. Exactly. That's a plant, one of many that is a good indicator of good soil. The better the soil that they're growing in, the taller they're gonna grow and the bigger they're gonna grow. They are a good indicator of good soil. If you run across one of those and them suckers is over 7 feet, 6 feet tall or taller, the soil they're growing in is good. That's some
Listen to me.
dynamite good
They
soil.
just grow.
Bigger they
I just
grow,
cut
that
them
means the
every
better.
year. I just chop them down every year
Yes,
because they
they'll
grow
come back
so
every
tall.
year. Hmm And
Wow.
they relatively fast growers. They grow
Oh
pretty fast.
yes. Oh yes.
Yes,
You
yeah.
you be see these things now shoot up there when they catch yourself, they hitting 6 feet going.
Hmm
I've got a lot of
Exactly.
them over there, a lot of them. But now you tell me
Yep.
about that, I gotta pay more attention into how to cook them.
Just like you would cook any green, bro. You could
Wow.
saute them, you could boil them. See, we ate them the old school way, cause I mean, I grew up that old Southern way. So we take like some smoked neck bones or something like that, and that's how we cooked a lot of our greens or potatoes and beans and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
That's how
right.
we cooked it. We take that smoked meat and we'll throw it in that pot and give that smoked meat a head start.
Oh
And that smoked
wow.
meat is so full of flavor, you don't need nothing else. You don't need no salt, maybe a little pepper, and that's about it. That's all you're gonna need because all that flavor
Mm.
is in that smoked meat. That's why you start that smoked meat a little bit early. You see what I'm saying?
Right,
And then you
right.
just
Okay.
wash your greens off real good and you roll them up like a cigar and slice them suckers in about, half inch, quarter inch thick or whatever, and throw them bad boys in the pot. Chop you up a
Oh
freaking
wow.
onion and some peppers or whatever and throw it
Yes,
in that pot. And yeah, man, that's a good eat, boy. You take that
man,
and
it's
throw
so
it over
much.
a plate of
Yo,
rice and
well,
man, make
man,
your tongues box your brain.
man, I have so much damn food on that place.
Hmm
Talk, man, I'm
Yes,
telling
they
you.
will give you an astronomical. And I tell you something else about that plant too. The more you pick off of it, the more that plant's gonna grow.
Yes, it's true.
Just don't
And
pick
you
it
know what?
bare. You
You
see
know
what I'm
what?
saying? Don't pick it bare, but if you harvest off of it, it's gonna grow that much faster. Just
Right.
like a green would. You sustainably harvest a green, kale, or anything, it's gonna
Wow.
grow back, and then the more you do it, the faster that sucker grows back. You
James,
find yourself out there in your garden crapping your greens every other day.
James, do you know I have over 100 of those plants? I
Well,
have
could I
over
ask a
a
favor from you?
hundred of those plants.
Could
Over.
I ask a favor from you?
Yes, sir.
Take some of those berries, right? When
Mm,
they're ripe, when they're that deep purple. Whereas if you break one of the berries, it'll stain your fingers. They plump and juicy. When they
mm.
get in that stage, pick some of them berries and dry them for me, and I'll try to see if I could grow that plant out here in the desert,
Okay.
if
Okay.
you don't mind.
What about a root? Because they come back every year. What about a root?
Well, You're right in the root, but the reason I don't want to go with the root route is because that plant is already acclimated to your
Right,
environment.
right, right, right,
You
right,
see? So if I
right.
was to start it out from a seed, then as it grows, it'll become more acclimated to my climate versus trying to get one from a root or a cutting or a
Got you,
start.
got you.
You see what I'm saying?
Got
That's the reason why I would rather start that plant from a seed because they don't grow out here. That plant
Mm,
is a wild plant. They
yes.
don't grow out here.
Okay,
You
okay,
see what I'm
okay.
saying? They're
Okay.
not. There's not a plant that's been cultivated by man or none of that. That's a straight
No,
up
it just
wild plant,
grow.
and they don't grow everywhere. Like I
Oh,
say, it's a good indicator of good soil. That soil got to be at a certain goodness for that sucker to grow.
man,
And the
these
bigger
things
they
grow
grow,
like
the better
crazy.
that soil is. Then
These
they grow like
things
crazy,
grow
especially if
like
they're in a good soil.
yes.
And
Oh
and the
wow.
thing, because I've never really pulled one or dug one up, so I couldn't tell you much about their root system because I've
Mm-hmm.
always tried to not harm them because we ate off of it. You know what I'm saying? So if
Right,
anything,
right.
we tried to give it some water now and again or something like that. You know what I mean? So I say that to say that I don't think that plant requires a lot of water. I think one of the reasons for it is that root system must be a dynamite root system that it grows so well in the wild with no care.
Well, well,
Only
you know
water
what?
it gets is when it rains.
You know what, James? I
Uh-huh.
never water them. I never give them
That's
water because
that's the point. That's exactly my point. The only water it gets is when it rains, and it grows
yes,
like a son of a gun.
yes, and these things
Yeah, so
grow
that
like crazy. I
and
just
that's what
cut them
tells
down
me
and
it must
never
have a
realize.
good root system.
Well, now I know.
And because
Now I know, James. I'm
yeah,
gonna turn this into one of my menu. I'm gonna be cooking. You know my food. I could eat these things all spring, all summer, into winter, into the fall. Because they
yeah,
just
and
keep
you can take
growing,
them. You
growing
you
and
know you know
growing.
what blanching means. You know what blanching means.
Nah, tell me out.
If I was okay, blanching okay is when you take vegetables like greens, beans, and stuff like that you want to freeze, right? You
Mm,
take them and you put them in boiling water for about 10 minutes.
right.
Take them out of that boiling water, right? Some people sit them in, shock them with a bowl of ice or ice water. Some
Mm,
people just let them cool down to room temperature on their own. Either way, it's good. Then you take it, put it in freezer bags, get as much air out of the freezer bag as you can, and you can put them in the freezer. So I say that to say you could do the same thing with the poke salad leaves.
mm.
You could do them just like you. There's nothing you could do with the green that you can't do with the leaves of this plant we're talking about. Poke salad.
Wow.
Everything you could do with a green, you could do with that green. I mean, with those leaves, and that's a highly healthy, nutritional leaf, a good thing that you could eat. And I
Mm,
think because of their root system is the reason why that plant is so healthy.
right.
My dad used to
Because
make wine from those berries.
they do have a strong root system. For what I
Okay. Well, like I
see.
said, I've never pulled one up, but judging by what I know about plants today as a grown man, that plant has to have an outstanding root system for its production and its growth and its health benefits to
Yeah,
be what it is.
yeah.
Be able to
Yeah.
pull the minerals up and the fact that it won't grow or grow well if it's not in good soil. It needs to be in good soil. And it's a good soil indicator in terms of how good your soil is, judging by how it grows.
Right. Well, you see
That's
them
a
over
plant
by
I've been
me.
around all my life. Since I was a kid, far back in my first memories, I remember that plant because we used to
Oh
eat off of that
wow.
plant all the time. That plant grew all over our property,
Oh wow.
all over our property.
Man,
Yes,
thank you
I
for
grew
this
up on that plant.
information. Thank you for this
No doubt,
information
bro.
because I have these plants, chopping them down, throwing them all in the bushes, using them for compost, and I can
Hey, if
eat
you
them,
don't know,
man.
you don't know. And when they
Wow.
get a certain size, the stems turn purple.
Yes, man. That's the plan. Yes.
Yes, they're purple, and they'll fade from green to purple. They
Yes.
just depend on how old the stem is, but it starts out green and then it goes purple when it reaches a certain stage.
And in the
Yeah,
winter,
I know the plant you
they
talk
die
about. I
right
know it
down.
well.
They die down in the winter and just come right back up in the spring.
Right
Funny.
back, exactly. It's a perennial. It comes back every year. Long as you don't do nothing to the soil or the root system, it'll come back every year and be just as strong, if not stronger than it was the year before.
All right.
And when it drops, if you let it last, whereas the berries come to their fruition and it drops its berries, then it'll start spreading, and another one will pop up the following spring.
Well, that's what happening by me. Because remember, I tell you, I don't pick the berries, I don't do nothing. So what happened? They drop. And then they
Yeah,
start shooting up
exactly.
in different areas. So now I have so much and chopping. You know what? No. You know what I'm gonna do now? I'm gonna put
What?
board around a couple of them root just for me to eat from. You know what I mean?
You ain't
So
got to
when
do
I'm
that.
cutting, I'll
No,
able to
planner.
take care of them
Planner.
better.
This is what you do, planner. All you
Mm,
need to do, if you don't want them to spread, right?
right.
Clip the berries off of 'em. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, right. That
And if
makes
you
sense.
want to
That
put
makes
any
sense.
care into them, right?
That
You know
makes
what I mean?
sense.
If you want to put any care into that type of plant, all you need to do is just throw your some leaves. Say you have the stalk of the plant, right? And the way
Mm,
that plant grows, if the stalk is here, the branches will reach out 5 to 6 feet from the stalk. You
yes.
see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Just throw you some leaves in that circumference from the furthest branch back to the stalk.
Right.
And that's pretty much all you got to do. Once in a while, shoot it with some water if it's one of those you get those dry spells or whatever. You know what I mean? And that's about all you need to do. That plant is strong enough; it will do everything for itself, except clip
Yes.
them berries if you don't want it to spread, because
That
that's
makes
how
sense.
it spreads. It drops those berries, and those berries are seeds that'll grow a new plant. It's not one of those plants that like mint or something that it'll shoot a root, and if that root come close to the surface, it'll spring up a new plant or something like that. You
Right.
know what I
Right.
mean? That plant
Yes,
don't
it's
grow
true.
like that. It
It's
it
true.
starts a new one from seed.
Seeds.
Yeah, exactly. So if you
Thank
clip
you.
them
Thank
berries,
you.
it'll never spread beyond where they are.
Well, I have,
Yeah,
man, you know what? Listen to me. You know,
yeah,
over there you could never go hungry without you planting anything.
yeah. I
Without I
remember as
plant
a kid,
anything, I
bro.
could never go hungry. There's always food growing up. I don't know if you ever hear me
Yes,
talk
we had
about
wild
Congo.
blueberries, we had wild cherries, brown
Yes.
berries, raspberry, all of that stuff growing around us. Just take a walk through the woods. If you
No,
look,
I'm
I always
serious.
said growing up,
You know,
if you was
I'm
hungry around my house, it was because two things: you was stupid or you didn't know how to eat. Otherwise, there's no way you gonna be hungry around my house. All that food we had: peach trees, pear trees, not strawberry, mulberry tree. Did I say apple or pear? But anyway, we had all of that on our property. And if you take a walk through the woods, there's wild stuff out there. You got
yes.
wild blueberries, you
You know,
got
I
wild
find grapes.
brownberries, you got wild raspberries, and wild cherries.
Yeah,
You go hungry, you stupid.
yeah. I
That's all I
find
can
grapes.
say.
I find grapes down in the bushes the other day too. Grapes that naturally
Yeah,
have grapes
muscadine.
on them.
In your area, the wild grapes, those muscadines, they're prevalent all over the place. And there was a
Yeah.
couple. They were hard to find, but they did exist. I knew where a few muscadine grapevines were that I would go and munch out on those daggone muscadines when they get ripe. I knew all of that stuff. That's how I grew up, bro. I grew up in the woods. Well, I'll take that back. It wasn't. There were woods around. It's not like my house sit here, the next neighbor was 3 miles away. No,
Right.
I didn't grow up like that. There was like there might be a wooded lot, then my neighbor is on the next lot. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And there were patches of woods because my neighborhood is big, but it wasn't highly developed as it is today. Today, you man, listen, you spit too hard, you spitting on somebody's house nowadays. So all of those wild, berries and trees and everything that I knew and I ate from growing up, they're no longer there. I mean, I'll
Okay.
go on Google Maps area view every now and again, punch in my old address where I grew up at, and I'll sit there and I'll go through the neighborhood and just look at how my neighborhood's changed from when I
Mm.
left to when I grew up through it and all of that. Because there was
Right.
development going on and everything. So right now it's nowhere near you. There's no way I could if I were to hit the lottery or get rich somehow and buy my parents' old house, the house I grew up in. There's no way I could live in that house the way I grew up.
Right. Right. Right.
You know what I mean? There's just I got neighbors right on either side of me now or whatever. You know what I'm saying? We used to have a
Too
path
close
at the
now.
end of our property that go out to the next street. Oh, yeah, ain't none of that no more. You know what I mean?
Right.
For me to
Right.
live like I grew up, I got to go buy me a piece of property somewhere that will allow me to live that way and plant my own stuff
Right.
and trees and this, that, the other to be able to live the lifestyle. Because we grew up, we had a huge garden, and it would sound like I grew up on acreage of land. I didn't. We grew up on 3/4 of an acre. Technically, we had an acre, but we used 3/4 of it, and the quarter was still woods. It was a little
Okay.
wood patch. That's where our wild brownberries and raspberries grew. But we had chickens, we had pigs, we had goat every now. Well, we had one goat one time, but we had chickens off and on. But we always had a garden and we always had pigs. Sometimes slaughter season roll around. It was not uncommon for us to slaughter 3 pigs, 4 pigs, and that'll
Mm.
give us enough meat till next slaughter season. And we did things the old school way to where, you know, hams, sausage, neck bones, things like that. We smoked that in the smokehouse. And it was the
Mm.
kind of
Wow.
the we kind of the kind of smoking that we did. We go to the smokehouse and basically do our meat shopping, get whatever we need out of the smokehouse, bring it in the house until it runs out. We'll go back to the smokehouse and get more.
Wow.
Nothing
Okay.
bothered that meat. That meat, if it lasted until the next slaughter season, you could literally pull out your pocket knife and cut a piece of ham, and it's just as good as it was the day the fire went out from
Right.
smoking.
Right. Right.
You see what I'm saying? It's
Oh.
not like that smoke you do today, was even though the meat is smoked, you still gotta refrigerate it or freeze it, or it'll go
Right.
bad.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It's this meat has been cured. It's been through a whole process. This process will take from beginning to end, from the time the process starts till the time the fire goes out for the last time. That's probably 2 week process, 2.5 week process, because you got to cure that meat first. You got to. There's two types of cure that the meat goes through before it even hits the smokehouse.
Right.
And
Right.
then that
Right.
smoke basically seals the deal. Because you look at nature, right? If a natural forest fire was to break out, nobody said it, just nature doing what it do. All the bugs, animals, and everything else in there gets early warning through their nose, and they getting the hell up out of Dodge. This
Right.
is one of the reasons why that meat, nothing messes with it, because it smells like danger, smoke.
Yep.
We love
Yep.
the flavor as humans. You see what I'm
Yeah,
saying? But when you look at it on a natural standpoint, nothing's gonna come in there and mess with it. And if it
right.
do, there are things that are done through the curing process to prevent that. You know what I
Exactly,
mean? Like
exactly.
I don't
Ex-
know because I know you don't eat meat. I don't know if that was through your whole life or not. But if you were to cure a ham, for example, fresh off the hog where it still has the hock on it, right in that hawk area, it's a little hollow point where the Achilles tendon is, to give you an idea of the location of the piece, the chunk of meat I'm talking about. Well, that location gets jam packed with red and black pepper. There's another hollow location right where the hip bone connects to your spine bone. I mean the your leg bone connect to your hip bone. I mean that ball and socket right there. It's
Right.
also another pocket there, and we pack that with red and black pepper to prevent that. Because if you don't do it, because the first cure process takes just about a week, and that's to draw out all of those meats and I'm sorry, the juices, which will basically turn the meat bad. It's not the meat that goes bad when it's spoiled. It's the juices in the blood that's in the meat. You see what I'm saying? So this
Right,
process
right.
draws that stuff out. So during that process, you got to pack that so that them bugs don't get in there. Everywhere else, the salt and the other ingredients into making your dry cure, bugs don't like that. They get away from that. And not only do the bugs
Mm,
get away from it, bad bacteria and pathogens and all of that don't, if you creating an environment, they cannot survive it. And this is why that
right.
meat lasts so long. You see a country ham, what they call a salted country ham, you got to boil that sucker for about 3 hours before
To
you
get
can
out the
start
salt.
exactly. That's why they did it that way. You know what I mean? And not, nowadays some people don't know how to deal with them old processes of meats or whatever, or even processed meat the old way. You know what I mean? But it's a lost dying art. Not many people know how to cold smoke the old school way for preserving.
Right, right.
They do it now for immediate now flavor, or flavor it now, throw it in the freezer for that flavor later. You know what I'm saying? Whereas
Got
the
you,
old
got you.
school way, we didn't, not to say that we didn't have it growing up, it's just that my dad was old school. He didn't give a damn because we got a chest freezer in the house with a upright freezer upstairs or something like that. He didn't care about that because that was full with our vegetables, our meat.
Okay.
Yeah, them bad boys got smoked. They got processed in different ways because not all of it got smoked. We froze some of it, like the sweet Italian sausage. We didn't smoke all of those. Some of them we kept fresh. Some of them we smoked and things of that nature. Some of it was even salted down, whereas it's in a tub of salt,
Right.
and that preserved it. And if it went bad, and it won't really go bad, it would just, the flavor and the taste would change. You see what I'm saying? It
Hmm.
wouldn't hurt you if you ate it. It's just that when it reached that stage, then now we cut it up and cook it for the dogs. It never
Oh,
went to waste. You see what I'm saying? You
got
cut
you,
down
got you.
that feed bill to feed the hog, I mean to feed the dogs or whatever, and we'll feed it to them that fat back or whatever. Especially in the winter time when they need a high protein, high fat diet to build them up to keep them warm because they ain't come in the house. They were outside dogs. They had a job to do. Step on that property
Right,
if you want to. You become
right.
lunch. That's just, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Mhm.
oh man, the old days. Okay, it's a
Yes.
shame you can't live free like that no more nowadays,
No, no,
unless
no,
you
no, no. Them
out
days
in
too.
bumfuck Egypt with a hole full of land. Outside of that, you can't live like that nowadays.
No, not at all. Time change.
For the
Yes.
worse.
You're right. You're right. That just
Yeah, because I mean that's freedom. When you can control your health on the front end. To me, that's true health. When you can
yep,
control it on the front end. And on the front end, you eating the fresh and the best of
yep.
everything. You got the knowledge and ability to produce. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I miss them days because we only went to the store, and this is no exaggeration, for flour, seasoning, beef, occasional eggs. Outside of that, everything else we ate. I'm sorry, cornmeal and flour. But outside of that, everything we ate, we produced on that property.
It's the same with
Jellies,
me. It's the same with
syrups,
me.
preserves, all of that. And plus, we work for farmers. We'd get up 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, go out there in that man field and pick his freaking crops.
Wow.
12 o'clock high noon, we're done. We done made our money. And this is how I supplied my school clothes. Through that, my other hustles, I go through the neighborhood shoveling snow if it's winter, cutting grass in the summer. That was my pocket money. That was my money to do whatever I wanted to do with. You go to that man field, that money was to buy your school clothes, buy your school supplies and things of that nature. You know what I mean? Even your lunch money. Where you know how back in the day your mama give you $1.25 for your lunch money or something like that to send you behind off to school or whatever. It wasn't my mama money, that was my money. You know what I mean? But that's
Got
just
you, got
how,
you.
old school folks raise their kids. That's why we hustlers. We get out here and get it.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
all of that.
yes.
Hmm.
James, thank you,
Those
man. Thank you for all the information, man. You did, man. Thank you. I appreciate you joining me tonight. I have some herbs that I plan to do as a giveaway, gives this somebody. I have some okra seeds. I have some organic fenugreek seeds. I have some
okay.
lemongrass, and I have
Nice.
some shishe. Very good herb. Shesi. I wanted to give some, James. I'm gonna give you some if you need some, but I also wanna give somebody. I wanna give somebody a package with some herbs and some seeds.
Cool. I
Yeah.
mean, if anything, I'd be interested in that lemongrass.
You need some of the lemongrass?
Yeah, that's some good stuff, man. That lemongrass is healthy for you.
Man,
It's good in a lot of
I
stuff,
have
man.
a lot, so I can get some over to you. All you gotta do, email me your address. Go and get my email,
All right,
email me your address, and I can
you
get it
got it.
over to you. I also have some other herbs too. What about seeds? You want okra seeds?
Yeah, I mean, I can never have too much okra seed.
Okay, well, all right. I'll send a small package for you with some seed and some lemongrass. And
Well, I'll tell you what. What was that thing you called shushimi? Shushi? What was that herb that
she,
you called?
its name she so. I'm not know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's S.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Wait, Nikki,
I'll take
wait,
that
Nikki gone.
I'll take
Nikki,
that instead of the okra because
where
that's
Nikki
something
gone?
new.
Yeah, this is wonderful. I have a lot of these. I'm growing as well. These things sell for like for half ounce. Some people sell them for like $12 for half ounce.
Oh wow.
This is
Okay.
really good. So yes,
How do you
yes,
use it?
you could use, well, if the leaf is green, you could use it in soup. You could boil it and make for tea. You could do
Okay.
a research on it. It's SHISO, and it have a lot
Okay.
of benefit as well.
All right. Cool. I'll look it up and do the research on it. I
All
mean,
right.
I'd rather try something new than the okra because I mean I have okra. There's nothing
Okay.
wrong with getting a different variety to grow
Well,
well, but
I'll
that's
send
something
some
I
for
don't
you
have.
because
So
because you have different variety of okra as well. So
right.
you never have enough,
Okay.
man.
That's cool.
Trust me. And if you have, you could
Yeah, you're
always
right
give
about that.
somebody some.
True.
You know, and I don't
So
know.
listen, I'm gonna go ahead and step down so I can let you do what you need to do because I know I could be winded and like minds, we just lose time. You know?
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that, man. Thank you for being here. I really enjoy this conversation, man. Thank you so
And
much.
so
I
did I.
truly appreciate you, brother. For real.
All right. Thank you
All
also,
right.
everyone out there in the chat. I appreciate y'all tolerating my long-winded self.
No, well,
I'll
we get
talk to y'all later.
information. So that's good.
True, true. I did give a lot of that.
Yes. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, yeah, that's the hub, Miss Audrey. Yes, that's it. That's the hub. That's the name of it. So you guys can do some research on it, but it's a leaf. It's very, very good. But do your research on it. It helps clean out information from out your body. But I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to tell you the result. You do your own research. The SHISO. It's an amazing plant. I also have some fresh lemongrass in this bottle that I'm gonna make a package. My next giveaway is in October. That's when I'm doing my real giveaway. Tonight I'm just giving somebody some herbs, few herbs with a few seeds. And this is a seasoning that I make. I make this seasoning with some beautiful herbs up inside here. That's good for seasoning your fish, your meat, and your meat and chicken. Beautiful seasoning. I might just strip in some as well. All right, Miss Audrey. Yes, do that. Yes, so I don't want to hold you guys too long. I'm just going to ask maybe one or two questions. And who get it, you know. But don't forget, the last Thursday in October, that's when I'm going to be doing my giveaway. I'm going to be giving somebody every plant that I have in my garden. They're going to get the seeds from all the plants. So there will be a winner on that day as well. But tonight I have so much herbs. I just want to share because you guys support me so much. You know, I just thank you guys. Wait, hold on. Whoa, it's have a lot of benefit. All right, you did your research, Angela Canvas Delight. Yes, it do. I drink this. What I do, I put it in boiling water, leave it for like 15 minutes, like in a cup of water, like 15 minutes, and just leave it there. When it done, and then when you done and I'm telling you, beautiful. Yes, James Franklin, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Hitting the road for, oh, wow. All right, Miss Audrey, have a safe journey. You leaving now? I'm doing the giveaway right now. So, let me see. Okay. You have a safe journey, Miss Audrey. Drive safe. Please drive safe. All right, guys. So, yes, I have some beautiful herbs. This is a seasoning with some fresh herbs I pick from my garden, dry them I air dry them. I do usually air dry all of my stuff. Lemongrass, you know, and then I have, yeah, you see, these is how I air dry my stuff. I put them on a line, but right now I'm trying to save seeds. So I'm air drying this to get the seeds, a lot of seeds rolling out there. Okay. All right, guys. So let's go now. Let's go at this. I'm not leaving. Okay. All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. All right, guys. All right. So when I say how deep do I, everybody, you guys should know this. 1, 2, 3. How deep do I plant my plants? How deep? That's one of the questions. How deep do I recommend planting your plant in your garden? All right, I will check it out. All right. Oh, my bargain say 1 foot 12 inches, and that's, yeah, she definitely win. Because I always say 12 inches, not anything less than 12 inches. No, 12 inches. Duval say 8 inches, but no, I always say 12 inches. Plant them 12 inches deep, which is 1 foot deep. All right, so that's the first question. Let me see. I don't want to hold you guys up too long. Let me see. After it rains, when you have rain, what do you do next in your garden? After the rain, after you have rain and the rain pour, what the next thing you do in the garden? When you go out after that rain, yes, 12 inches. Yes, it's 12 inches. All right. So yes, when it's rain, because this is thing I always talk about. I always talk about how deep and when it's rain, what's the next thing you do when you go out into your garden? You ever see debris? No, not harvest. That's before. No, that's before that. While your plant's growing, and it's rain, what is okay? Let me put it this way. When your plant is especially young, like you have young plants, and it's rain, what you go out and do the next step? What you go out and do? Hey David, how you doing, man? Thank you for being here, man. Okay. Yes, Buck Nugget. Buck Nugget. Basically, I must say check for damage. And I mean that's something you do as well. But this is basically, I think Buck Nugget get this one. Aerate the soil. Yes. I mean, I have video doing that as well. Where you go and you start molding because you don't want the sun to come and penetrate that soil because it can make the soil get hard. So yes, aerate the soil. Yes, that's Orma have one, Tiny Farm Nugget have one. Hey David, we here doing a giveaway, man. We was here for over 3 hours now. Wow, I didn't recognize it so. Wait, what did you say, Miss Audrey? Hold on. Oh no, oh sorry. Miss Audrey, right. Miss Audrey say, walk the soil. Oh yes, Miss Audrey. Miss Audrey, let me see who said it first. Hold on. Okay, Miss Audrey say, walk the soil so it doesn't harden. That's basically that's exactly what I just be saying. Walk the soil so it would not come, that it doesn't get hardened. I didn't even see that, Miss Audrey. So basically, Orma have one and Miss Audrey have one. Because Miss Audrey say exactly what I said. So she really showed that she watched the video. Yeah. Okay. That means I got to come up with more than one question now. Yes, you're right. Oh, no. Okay. Oh, wait, hold on. Tiny Farm said it first. Okay, all right, okay. So we're trying to, I want to make sure, man, I should have a moderator here for help me. Okay, so Tiny Farm Nugget, you have one, my bargain have one. Okay. Hi. Hey, Alton Cathy, how you doing? Thank you for being here. All right, so let me see now. Another question. Okay, everybody should know this. Okay, everybody should know this. All right. What do I use for my compost? What do I use for my compost? What do I do? What do I use for my compost? Okay, almost a leaf, tree leaf, things from the garden. Okay, almost a leaf, Miss Audrey say, tree leaf, things from the garden, which is that's definitely true. Everybody have a grass clipping leaf, almost a rotten chichong. Oh wow, this is getting tough, everybody. Everything. Okay. Okra? No, Miss, no. No, Miss Angela Calvis. I'm talking about what I use for compost in the garden. Damn, who should I give this one? Almost a leaf. Miss Audrey say tree leaf, and I gotta give Miss Audrey this one. Tree leaf, things from the garden. Yes, I come after and say rotten tree trunk, which also rotten tree trunk. So basically, everything elite, David, everything that breaks back down garden. All right. All right. Things running class. You're okay. All right. So now I gotta give Miss Audrey this one. Wow. Okay, so that's Miss Audrey, Buck Noggin, and Orma Borgin. Okay, so that's 3 of them. The first person come with the answer is where I'm going with. I'm not just who come up first. Okay, with the answer. All right. Okay, how much? All right. Okay. How much feet is my pepper tree at this time? I did a video how much feet. How much feet is my pepper tree tall at this time? How tall is my pepper tree? How tall is my pepper tree? My tallest pepper tree. Oh, all right, Miss. Who? James. Well, Miss Audrey first. David, you right, but Miss Audrey come up first. 7 feet tall. Yes. You are. Hello, my journey to success. How you doing? Yeah, James Franklin, we appreciate you, man. Thank you for being here, sharing the information, man. Peace, love, and blessing, man. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so Miss Audrey win this one because she first come up with 7. Orma come up with 7. David come up with 7. You guys are right, but I'm trying to the first person. James Franklin, 7 feet. 7 feet now. Wait. Miss Orma, you say you have no, Miss Audrey come up 7 before you. Look here. You see? Miss Audrey, 7 feet. Orma, 7 feet. It's got to be the first person. You see what you got me? Basically, how it going is the first person will come up with the answer. That's the person I'm basically choosing. Because David said it as well. Orma said it, but Miss Audrey is the first one to say it. So I have to give her that. So she have 2. But Nugget have 1. And Orma, you have 2, I think. Okay, so let's go with this. Let me find the next one now. Let me find another one. All right, all right. Okay. What's the name of the herb I now give you guys to research? The name of the herb I now give you to research. I now show it to you, and I now give you the name. What's the name of that herb? All right, Miss Audrey again. So, Miss Audrey, Angela Canvas Delight, you said the same thing as well, but Miss Audrey first, and that's the person I'm thinking because the first person who come up with the answer. So that's 3. How much did I say? How much question did I say, guys? How much question did I say I'm gonna ask? I gotta do. I have to have a moderator for the next giveaway. I definitely. 5 questions, I say. All right, so we are 3. Yeah, man, I think Audrey won already. Audrey says it's a 5 question. All right, okay. If it's 5, I say I just want to be fair. Let me see. What question can I ask? When my plants start growing, do I water my plant? Yes or no? Once they start growing, do I water my plant? Yes or no? Once my plants start growing, you don't say we have to get 5. Okay. All right, Miss Audrey again. No, I don't water. I don't water the plant. Once my plants start growing, I do not water my plant. I mean, I say that in many videos. Angela get it as well. My journey to success get it as well. James Franklin get it as well. No, I do not water my plants. Okay. One more, let me see. All right, let me go with this one now. What do I, let me see now. Okay, this should be easy. Name 2 plants that I'm growing right now. 2 plants that I'm growing right now. Name 2 plants that I'm growing right now. All right, okra and pepper. All right, well, Miss Audrey, this is the 5th one for Miss Audrey, okra and pepper. Miss Audrey, the 4th one, and she reached 5. Beans and okra, yes. David, I mean, everybody right. Everybody right. Duval City, Gold Garden, beans and okra, yes. Nugget right and okra, right. But at the end of the day, Miss Audrey, Miss Audrey is 5 now, so the winner is Miss Audrey because she come up with the answer first, and this is the 5th question. All right, Miss Audrey, so you're the winner. So just email me where you want me to send these things for you, and I'll definitely get them over to you. Guys, Miss Audrey win, and I appreciate each and every one of you for being here tonight. Thank you guys for keeping up with me. Thank you, James Franklin. You guys check out James Franklin channel because I mean he have a lot of information to share. Thank you guys so much. I truly appreciate you guys. It's a blessing to have you guys, man. But guys, listen to me. I'm coming the last week in October, guys. The last week in October, I'm going to have a giveaway. I'm going to have a lot of seeds. Somebody going to win a lot of seeds. Maybe I might give more than one giveaway. But it's most likely going to be seeds and maybe some herbs. I'm going to be asking questions, guys, about videos that I post. Okay? So you got to check out the videos and you got to think about the videos that I post and look for, just try, see if you can get some answers, because I'm definitely going to be asking question of from videos that I post. Okay? So I appreciate you guys. And you guys know I come on every Wednesday, every Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Eastern Standard Time. And I truly appreciate you guys. I mean, guys, I mean, let me see. All right, so remember, the last Thursday in October, which is next month, we're going to have a giveaway with seeds and maybe some herbs. So please stay tuned. I appreciate you guys. Peace, love, and blessing to each and every one of you. Have a good night. All right? Thank you, guys. Blessing.